Good job. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is Friday night, so that means it is time for another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. I'm one of your co hosts, Alan, from the Let's Talk Metal channel. And you may notice that my normal trusty co host is not here tonight. So, Marty is off at a show supporting his local heavy music scene. He wishes he could be here. He says hello to everybody. But yep, got to go out and support the local bands and check out what they're doing as well. But fear not, got some excellent help recruited for the evening in the form of Mike from the MetalMickey channel. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm doing okay, considering it's 2 a.m. over here in the UK.
Yes, Mike was gracious enough to take one for the team and stay up extra late tonight to cover this with myself and with our other guest, Darcy from the Darcy Six Strings 9 Lives channel. Darcy, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm doing great, thank you. 2 a.m. I'm probably up for my second piss at this age, but at 2 a.m., Mike. But glad to have you here, and glad to see you, Alan, as usual. And hello, Marty, wherever you are.
Yep, wherever Marty's at. Hopefully he is having a beer and having some fun. But we're going to have some fun as well. Absolutely. So when I contacted Darcy and Mike about possibly appearing and asked them, what do you guys want to talk about? They talked amongst themselves for a bit and decided that they wanted to rank some Megadeth albums. And I was like, all right, that's an excellent topic. It's something that a lot of folks in the chat have asked about from time to time. And so we knew we would get around to it one day. And today is going to be that day. So before we get started, I do want to just take a moment, though, say hello to folks in the chat. Thank you all very much for joining us this evening. If I'm not posting in the chat as much as usual, I'm kind of driving the ship here, hitting all the buttons and toggles to try to keep things going. I had a note posted in the comments earlier that, I am technically in the path of Hurricane Ian, but the storm has swung a lot further east today than it was initially projected. So fingers crossed, we should be able to keep the stream going without any trouble. But if I disappear at some point, then there's just enough wind to drop a tree on some power lines, and Mike and Darcy can keep things rolling. Hopefully, if I disappear, it's not because I got pissed off at the way somebody ranked something. There's a lot of trees and a lot of old power lines around where I live, but we'll try to keep things going as best we can. All right. This is not a band that needs a lot of introduction. You really don't get much more iconic than Megadeth. They're one of the big four of American thrash. They've been on major labels. They have a career and a catalog spanning almost 40 years. Dave Mustaine is one of the most identifiable figures in the heavy metal universe. One of the more colorful figures in the heavy metal universe as well. His voice is instantly recognizable. And, his antics, for better or for worse, are, documented in great detail in many places. We probably won't get into a ton of that tonight unless it pertains to the music itself. But I want to start out before we start trying to rank any albums and just ask each of you what your personal history with the band is. When did you jump on board with Megadeth? And what have you done? Have you kept up with them over the years? Did you drop out for certain periods or things like that? So, Darcy, let's begin with you. So, can you tell us about your journey with Megadeth?
My journey with Megadeth started off in 1986. I know you guys are really familiar with MTV and possibly Much Music here in Canada. Right around the day I saw the video for Wake Up Dead, I was hooked. I was just thinking, this is definitely music on another level. Into Metallica by that time for sure, but that and I honestly have never looked back. So I know a lot of people have jumped off the mega train or whatever. I never have. I've kind of been with the ups, the downs, the different direction, the many lineup changes. But I've been with them since '86.
So okay, yes, you got on earlier and stuck with them all the way through. That's a very impressive. Let's see. So, Mike, what's your history with Megadeth? I think your story might be a tad different.
Yeah, well, I had an older cousin, well, I still have an older cousin who was into this whole scene maybe 4 years prior to me. So I was one of them kids that when I went to friends' houses and stuff, or relatives, you know, in the case of my cousin, I'll be one of them kids that wanted to borrow as much as I could because I didn't have a job and, you know, I was only 13 or whatever. So I remember borrowing a VHS of it was a video compilation that Kerrang had put out of just, I don't know, 15, 20 different music videos. And the Peace Cells video was on that VHS. And that was my first exposure, which that was popular on television as well after I realised. So it was probably just a little bit after Wake Up Dead had come out. Just that video. And I was, being only 13 or something at the time, I was really sort of excited to see that kid switch the television off, you know, and I want to watch the news, this is the news and all that. And I was like, yeah, that's where I'm at, you know, that sort of thing. And when I was growing up in the 80s, my big four wasn't the big four. I replaced Slayer with Halloween. That was my big four, but Megadeth was certainly there. And I was fanatical about them until Countdown came out. And that was a big blow. And my interests in thrash and everything by this point, by 92, had waned. And I kind of fell off for years, for about 10 years, really. I had a dabble again after that, fell off again for about another 10 years, had a dabble, and, you know, it's been patchy at best, my relationship with Megadeth, to be honest.
Oh, understandable. I think, yeah, a lot of people have a similar tale, as we'll talk about tonight. Their catalog is, yeah, you know, there's some ups and downs in it for sure. For myself, my story is kind of similar to yours, Mike. I first heard the band either in the tail end of the 80s or right around the time maybe Rust in Peace comes out. You know, that's, you know, late 88 into 89 is when I was, you know, getting into heavy metal. So, and of course, it's a band everybody finds out about pretty quickly once you get into heavy metal. The first songs I heard were on compilation albums. I know I heard Skull Beneath the Skin on a compilation, and I heard Hook and Mouth on a different compilation. So those were the first tracks I heard. Rust in Peace was the first new album that came out, and memory's a little fuzzy on the order of things, but I'm almost certain I got Rust in Peace and Peace Cells at the same time. Yeah, again, I've covered my history before, but I lived, you know, in a very rural area. We didn't get out to cities or towns with record stores very often, so when we did, you made it count. And I'm pretty sure on one particular, you know, trip to the big city, I ended up with copies of both of those cassettes at the same time because, well, they're both here, and I've got to, you know, money. Actually, if I remember right, my dad picked them up for me because I think he had gone out someplace and I couldn't go with him that day. And he was actually kind enough to go into the local record store and buy Megadeth albums, which there's nothing he could have been less interested in hearing than Megadeth. But he still did bring some tapes home for me since I think I was sick. I was going to go with him and gotten sick and just asked him to check on some tapes. And he came home and was like, hope you feel better. If not, here, lay in bed and play these. I'm like, sweet. So yeah, then, you know, like you, Mike, really liked, you know, the band's output, you know, from that era, worked my way backwards. But yeah, then, you know, starting with Countdown, that was, yeah, a kind of a big bump in the road for me as well. And I kept up with them through the 90s, but then I did tune out for a very long time. Did not pay attention to them at all in the early 2000s or even, well into the 2010s. So when we discuss that part of the catalog tonight, those are albums I don't have nearly as much mileage with as things from the 80s or 90s or, the very most recent stuff. It's an interesting catalog because, there's going to be albums that, I like. There's albums I don't like. It's an interesting catalog because it's also a very polarizing one for a lot of people. I've been going through lots of, reviews and album release things and the like over the past couple of weeks while we've been prepping for this show. And, no matter which album you pick, you'll find people who love it to death and you'll find people that absolutely despise it and everything in between as well. So, it's very interesting the reactions people have to different Megadeth albums. I won't be surprised if we have some very different rankings among the three of us, and we may have some very different opinions in the chat tonight as well. So with that said, before we start in on the rankings, just reminders, these are just our personal rankings. We're not trying to carve them in stone. There's no need to break out the pitchforks and torches just because someone's ranked different than you. Okay, Darcy's spoiling for a fight. I'm playing nice. But another thing is rankings can certainly change over time. Some of these albums I have ranked in a different order this week than I would have 6 months ago or a year ago for sure. So things can definitely change as we go over time.
I've made changes today.
There you go. Absolutely. I've looked at it today and thought about making some changes. I didn't, but I've been tempted. There are some that are very, very close for me. So we've got a lot of albums to get through. They have 16 studio albums. We're going to start with our least favorites and gradually make our way up to our most favorites. So without further ado, Darcy, as kind of the longtime Megadeth stalwart, I think we'll start with you on each round. And
so
Michael goes
what about the promo spot? Can I do you have any t-shirts left? Or are we good, or we got a few for sale?
Any of the promo stuff. Thank you for the reminder, Darcy. Marty does still have, I think, some t-shirts available in the Bind Room store. So if folks are looking for a Heavy Metallurgy t-shirt, you can hop over there and pick one up. New shirts are being designed, so if you also want to wait and see the new design, that is coming. Justin over at Vestabond's Bloodbox channel is working on that for us, so it should be cool to see what he comes up with. We have the super chat features turned on. Sometimes folks ask if there's a way they can help out the show a little bit, so you can use that feature to throw a few dollars our way. If you'd like to, we appreciate it. It is certainly not required. We're not going to hold out our top 5 rankings until you hit $50 in the pot or something. We're not doing some kind of webcam series here or anything. You'll get the same good comment and debate from us either way. But if folks want to use the super chats, you're quite welcome to do so. And there are links to both of these fine gentlemen's channels in the comments. So if by chance you have never watched Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives or the MetalMickey channel, definitely check them both out. They are always doing fun and interesting content. Mike, I know you made a trip recently to the Rough Trade record store. That was a very fun video to watch as you flip through what they had in the racks. For folks that have never been overseas, it was kind of cool to see what another record store looks like in another country.
Yeah.
I went to the Earache offices, but surprisingly, they don't have a little shop. I think they're missing a trick there. They could, they could have a little store with a counter, and because I would buy things, just because you're there and you don't have to pay shipping and whatever. But it's a bit of a shame that they didn't have one there as well.
Yep. And Darcy, you've been featuring a lot of sort of new items and arrivals and purchases in some of your videos recently too. You've gotten a lot of cool stuff lately, it seems.
Yeah. And that flip flop with rankings or just talking about stuff I have. But Alan is mentioning that there's links to our channel, but please, Alan has his own awesome channel. You got to get over to Let's Talk Metal, and get over and visit MetalMickey. These two guys absolutely do this for the right reasons. It's not a popularity contest. It's just us having fun. And you know what? I'm soon to be, 54 years old, and this is the highlight of my week. And I'm absolutely looking forward to this. So I don't want to hold it up. Let me start whenever you're ready, Alan. I'm good to go.
All right. In that case, let's toggle over here, bring you up front and center. And so, Darcy, what is the worst Megadeth album in your opinion? No pressure.
Well, you know what? Out of the 16 albums, my bottom 3 are absolutely not good. They are just not good. There is some good songs on it. I'm a huge Megadeth fan. I will try to look for the good in every album. And the degree of good varies, but I'm going to start off with probably no surprise to a lot of people, 1999's Risk. You know what? There's this one and the next one actually flip-flop for a bit, but this was probably the extent of my homework, was listening to this one and the next one and just kind of trying to decide, because coming off 97's Cryptic Writings, they use the same producer. This guy is Dan Huff. And it's almost like they decided to, let's take the shittiest songs off of Cryptic Writings and make them worse. And that's how I kind of feel. There is a couple bright spots here. Insomnia is a good song overall, but the chorus, that Insomnia, that gets on your nerves. Prince of Darkness, not a bad song, but I'm going to tell you that my favorite song off of this album is called I'll Be There. They actually still play it live from time to time, maybe not the past 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years, but they played I'll Be There. It's kind of a, not a ballad type of song, but more of a, mid-pace song. So that is my number 16. And I think that's where it'll stay. Just right in the title, Risk. They took a risk and it didn't work out. Last album to feature Marty Friedman on guitars. Mm-hmm. First album, I think Jimmy DeGrasso was on drums on this one. Nick Menza had left. It was, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing in 1999, but I was thinking about this today. They had an opportunity because Metallica just came off of Load and Reload in 96 and 97. Wouldn't have that been the time to just put a thrasher piece out? But trying to keep up with the times, really. You guys all know the 90s, so I will leave it at that. Number 16, Risk.
All right. So, Mike, let's hear, what's your choice for the bottom of the barrel in the Megadeth discography?
It's exactly the same for me, to be honest. But confession time, I only listened to this album in preparation for this stream because I've read all the reports over the years that it's terrible and it should be avoided and all the rest of it. And to be honest, I took that advice for 20 years or whatever, and however long it's been out. And I just thought, well, yeah, I don't need to listen to that. I'm not interested. But obviously I had to listen to it for this. And yeah, it's more Fender Strat than Flying V. And that just isn't what I want from Megadeth. And I sort of likened it to like Alice in Chains more than Megadeth. It was a rock album, not a metal album. Mm-hmm. And I think Dave Mustaine is metal is more forgiving of imperfections in singing, whereas rock, there's some real big rock voices, so that you're up against it more if you're going to sing rock. You've kind of got to bring your A game if you're going to make a great rock album vocally. And I just don't think he's excuse me, I'm getting a notification there. I just don't think he has a great rock voice. Yeah, it was just completely at odds with everything that I thought the band were, to be honest. So I got through the album, but just, and I'll never ever listen to it again, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Understandable. For myself, let's see. Yeah, I don't. I only own some of them on hard copy, so yeah, I'll just hold up pictures. Or Darcy has offered to hold up albums for folks too. But Risk is at the bottom of the barrel for me as well, and I agree exactly with what you said, Mike. This is an album where Dave is definitely doing a lot of songs that lean more in the rock direction, and you're right, his voice just isn't suited for those style songs. They very rarely work out very well. But to be fair, Darcy, you're right. There are a couple of songs on here that are okay. They're not gems. They're not going to make Megadeth's greatest hits, but you named two of them in particular that I also think are decent, Darcy. And it's the first two tracks, Insomnia and Prince of Darkness. They're not perfect, but they're okay. And it's funny, the first time I heard this album, I had heard, of course, plenty of bad things about it. And I was like, okay, I should check it out just to confirm that it really is that bad. And so those first two songs playing, just like, well, this isn't that horrible so far. Maybe there's something here. And then the album kind of goes downhill from there. There's at least one other that I thought was okay. The Doctor Is Calling, I don't mind. It's not a fantastic song, but
no, it's shit. It's just shit. It's a terrible song.
I compared to the rest of the stuff on here, it's at least was like, I don't think it's as bad as the others. And you do have to be careful when you get into that mentality that sometimes you're trying really hard to find something to latch onto on an album like this, and you'll pick songs that are very mediocre by any other standard, but compared to the rest of the tracks, it's like, well, that one doesn't suck as bad. So yeah, you do have to be mindful of that. So yeah, well, there's a couple of tracks that are okay on here. It is, and you're right, Darcy. It really does feel, this whole period of Megadeth kind of feels like a wasted opportunity where they could have really just conquered the heavy metal universe if they wanted to. They had, a great lineup. Friedman, many people consider him, the best guitarist Megadeth ever had, and it feels like such a waste, for him to be on this album with this material, and then he leaves, and you have to kind of do a very hard reboot after this album. So yeah, I also have Risk at the bottom of the rankings, and I think you both are right. Not many people are going to be surprised by that, but we do have some other albums that might be close to it. So,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Back in the day, one of my warning signs, especially with like bands like Metallica and Megadeth, when they started altering their logos, it almost just spelled trouble. It was just like, like even on Risk here, this is besides the debut album, this is the first time they've separated it, and it's just kind of, it's a little bit different. I mean, Cryptic Writings, but man, that was one of the danger signs is, they're altering their logo. They're just trying to keep up with, I don't know, at the time, Alice in Chains or whoever, but at the time, I would take an Alice in Chains album all day long over Risk. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you're right. When they start cleaning up the logo, making it look a little less metal, little more corporate friendly, yeah, that is always sort of a warning sign for sure. All right. Any other thoughts on our Risk ranking before we move to number 15?
I think people just wanted that one over with, I guess. So
wish granted. All right. So Darcy, what have you got at number 15?
Number 15, and I told you earlier that this one actually flip-flopped, and it's real close to being at the bottom too, but 2001's World Needs a Hero. I have this one on vinyl, but it actually has the original cover where Vic is breaking out of Dave's chest. So 2001, Marty Friedman's gone. We have Al Petrelli. And I'll be honest, I don't get the hype behind. I'm sure Al Petrelli's a great guitar player, but I just don't think he was a good fit for Megadeth, to be honest with you. The biggest thing for me out of this album, there's some good tracks. I'm going to mention them, but I feel this is the least, the Megadeth with the least direction, least I don't think they had a set out path on this album. It just feels all over the place, to be honest with you. Experimental in places, but I'll highlight a couple of. I actually did not mind Moto Psycho. It's corny as hell, the lyrics are, but I didn't mind it. But overall, like for example, Return to the Hangar, not necessary, not needed, not a great song. I don't know if you've got, obviously you guys listen to this. The last track is called When. There is a part in that song where is a dead ripoff of Am I Evil. They're about the 3:30-minute mark, 3:45. It is literally a dead ripoff of Am I Evil. It's a horrible song. Highlights. The title track's not bad. Dread and The Fugitive Mind would probably be my favorite track overall. But there's some really bad stuff on here, like even the opening track, Disconnect, is not great. There's some really bad spoken parts with even a girl doing the relationship voice, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I won't babble on too much, but yeah, I would say check out Moto Psycho or Dread and The Fugitive Mind. Yeah, that's about it. This is definitely coming in at 2000. Sorry, came out in 2001, coming in at number 15. The World Needs a Hero. Don't even get the title to this day yet. So yeah, that's my number 15.
Okay. Let's see. Mike, what have you got next?
Well, we do differ there. My number 15 is, if you want to hold it up for people, Darcy, is Super Collider. I almost put this at the bottom, and I was going to give Risk the 15 slot because I thought, well, at least they were trying something new. It didn't work out. I didn't like it, but it was trying something new. And whereas Super Collider is definitely more a Megadeth sounding album, but it's just so uninspired. I like the song Super Collider is all right. I made some notes and I forgot the names of the songs, but I've said on my notes that the first two songs on the album were passable. You know, they were okay. I can't remember what they are. One's the title.
Kingmaker and Super Collider, the title track.
Yeah, those two, a bit like what you've just said, Alan, before, you scrat around looking for something that you go, oh, well, that's not bad, but it's only because it's sitting among, you know, a load of shit, to be honest, that it starts to look okay. And that's definitely the case. I just think it's, even though it's got far more of a Megadeth sound than Risk, I thought it's just completely forgettable to me. I mean, admittedly, I've only listened to that album in its whole existence about 5 times, but nothing commits to memory, and I find it a chore to get through, to be quite honest. So yeah, I mean, just I don't know what they were thinking. The first 2 songs are okay, but after that, I'm reaching for the stop button, to be honest.
Understand. Yep. I'll have things to say about both those albums in a minute, but I have a third entry for number 15 compared to y'all. My choice for number 15, and a lot of folks may have this one a bit higher, but I have a personal bad experience with this album. I've got Cryptic Writings at 15. This was I thought kind of, you know, Megadeth's last chance to get it back together. You know, the albums before this had not made a great impression on me. One of them has grown on me a bit with time. We'll get to that later in the evening. But, you know, when this one came out, basically Megadeth was on very thin ice with me. I'm just like, I really don't know if I give a crap what Megadeth is doing here around 97 or not. And so I didn't pick up the album right away. It's like maybe when I get in the mood for it, if I find it, discount on sale, used or something, I'll pick it up. But then one of my buddies bought it, and he was a pretty big Megadeth fan, and he was just drooling over it. He's like, "No, you got to check this out right away. It's so good." I'm just like, "Really? Are you sure?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's awesome." And I knew this guy's taste. He was one of those guys that latches onto a band and then just loves everything they do. If he likes a band, they can do no wrong, and he admits it. He'll say, for example, he's a huge Metallica fan, and he'll like, James Hetfield could fart into a microphone for 30 minutes, and I'll buy the album and the DVD and the special edition, and I will give it 2 thumbs up. I'm just like, good for you. Someone's got to buy it. Someone has to help him buy that third ivory back scratcher. But he kept on about it. I was like, okay, let's check it out. I will give it a fair chance. Put it on. We'll hang out. I'll listen to the album. And we're hanging out. He's playing it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm just like, this is horrible. And at the same time, he's just like sitting there, just it's that same experience you have sometimes with other folks where you've got something that you think is cool, and you want them to think it's cool. So he's just sitting there the whole time, like, yeah, you dig it. I'm just like, no. He's just like, oh, come on. This next song's even better. You like this next song? No.
That's horrible when that happens.
It really is. And it just kept going that way. So at the end of it, I'm just like, dude, it's great if you like this album. I think that sucked. And he was just crushed. And then it became the typical thing. It's like, well, it doesn't suck. You suck. I'm just like, I am rubber. You are glue. Blah, blah, blah. It quickly deteriorated into just, goofing on each other. But I never really recovered on Cryptic Writings after that. Like, this is not what I want to hear Megadeth do. Once again, like you said, Darcy, the logo. Where's the logo? That's not the Megadeth logo. Right away, something is astray here. There's a couple of songs I don't mind on it. The big standout, of course, is Disintegrators. That album, that song, that's a great song. It's old school thrashy Megadeth. But it stands out as being really good because, like you said, Mike, it's surrounded by a pile of crap. Secret Place, is not too bad. She Wolf is a decent track. Have Cool Will Travel is a weird song title, but it's passable as a song. So I can recognize that, yeah, there's a handful of songs here that are okay, and Disintegrators is particularly good. But overall, a lot of the rest of the material, I'm just like, nah, this is not what I want to hear Megadeth trying to do. It's just not. So for me, Cryptic Writings is down here in the 15 slot. So that brings us to number 14. And Darcy, that means you are up once again.
Well, I'm going to be back with Mike's number 15 because this is my number 14. This is what year did this come out? 2013. The Super Collider. So I had mentioned in the first part of this video that the bottom 3 of these on my ranking, they're not good albums. There's a few good tracks, but overall this one was quite disappointing, and it didn't take me long to realize that what the hell's going on here, because there's just not much. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the track listing, things like that. The leadoff track, Kingmaker, Mike said he likes that one. Not bad. I thought the title track, Super Collider, was super catchy, and I don't mind it at all. On this album is one of the most terrible Megadeth songs ever made, and it's called Dance in the Rain. It's absolute shit. It is just uninspired, not good at all. And there's another track that I really, really like on here. It's called Forget to Remember. It's a Mustaine track. But the redeeming quality, when you have a cover song on here, Cold Sweat, that is pretty much almost the highlight of this album. What does that tell you? Whether that was an afterthought, like these guys probably are in the room and said, you know what, this album is not as good as we thought. We've done all this work. We better do a decent cover song and throw it in there. Because besides the title track and Forget to Remember, Cold Sweat is the highlight. The guitar tone's cool. It's a Thin Lizzy, very recognizable cover song, and a
badass song.
And of course, when we don't have Vic Rattlehead on the cover, we have probably one of the poorest Vic Rattleheads on the back. It's just like, shit, were they talking to Iron Maiden with the Final Frontier cover here? Because this is a terrible back cover, and it's been my number 14 for, well, I mean, since the new album, but it's always been in that third lowest spot. Like I said, when you have Cold Sweat that saves your album, not really, but you know what I mean. So that's my number 14.
Okay. Let's see. So, Mike, what have you got at number 14?
Well, we're switching back again because I've got The World Needs a Hero at number 14. When we were talking about did we fall off and did we get back on and this, that, and the other, back in 2001 when this came out, I was working in an office in a builder's merchant, and I had to go out the office. They asked me to make a sort of long distance delivery urgently for somebody in a car that one of the drivers had forgot to take, and it was highly important and all this sort of shit. So they said, just take the boss's card and just get down there. It'll take you a couple of hours, So I wasn't prepared for that journey. So there was no way I wanted to go and listen to the radio for 4 hours or whatever. So that was still at a time where we used to have record shops in the town. And I quickly called in to a record shop. Now, 2001, my daughter was born in 1999. So in 2001, music in general didn't play a huge part in my life. I had too much other things going on with a young baby and a stepson and things like that. So I just run in this record shop because I could park right outside of it. I sort of quickly scanned for 10 seconds the CD rack, seen that Megadeth album, and just thought back to my childhood, quite honestly. And I thought, oh, that'll do. And I just grabbed it, paid for the thing, got in the car and drove down. And oh my God, that was the worst journey ever. that Motor Psycho song come on, and I almost just threw it out the window. I just couldn't stand it. I just thought, what is this? This is just weak shit. And to be honest, I've blotted that album out of my memory. I can't recall anything about it, and that's honest truth. Apart from when Darcy mentioned the title track, because the chorus is somewhat catchy, but again, it's sat right in the center of a shit pie, so it looks appealing, sort of, and that is about it. And yeah, these bottom three, I've got very little sort of to input, unfortunately, because I just find them hideous.
Yeah, don't feel bad though. As a longtime fan, I feel similar. I have similar feelings as you do about those bottom three. There's not that many redeeming factors.
Agreed. And I'll echo those sentiments by putting my number 14 chip squarely on Super Collider as well.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, this one, once again, there's a couple of songs that aren't that bad. And it's funny because, even on some of the worst Megadeth albums, you can usually find a song or two, or you can find you can find a handful of good riffs, or, a few good solos here and there. But there's just not enough here to, hold up an entire album. Kingmaker's okay, Burn and Built for War aren't bad. This was another one that, when I heard it for the first time, this was like, this album gets shit on, but these first few songs are okay. But then, yeah, it quickly falls down that gigantic tunnel that's being shown on the front cover. The one thing I have to ask for some insights on, because I hadn't seen the video for Super Collider until this week. It popped up randomly on the YouTube feed because I'd been playing so much Megadeth. What in the blue hell is up with that video? Are either of y'all familiar with the video for Super Collider?
It's horrible. It's horrible.
What is going on in this video? I don't understand. It's like nerdy guy, likes pretty girl who seems to be paying some attention to him, and then an old guy shows up and stomps his model rocket, and later on, I guess it's the same girl comes back 20 years later and they kiss. What the fuck is going on in this video? I don't understand.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah, I haven't watched that video in 10 years because it was that bad. It was horrible.
It really is. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with the lyrics in the song. The story, it's so bad you want to laugh at it, but you keep watching it and you realize it's not even worth laughing at bad. It's just like sad bad. That alone makes it really, really hard to bounce back from. Another little thing that bothers me with this one is that it's the last album with Chris Broderick on guitar, who I really like, and he did some really good stuff with Megadeth that we'll be talking about later. But like we talked about with Risk, it seems like a really sad album for, wrap up his Megadeth tenure with, because he's so much better than the material that's being offered here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and you're exactly right, Darcy. Anytime the cover on the album is your best song, you just have a bad album. And Cold Sweat, it's a badass Thin Lizzy song, one of my favorites. They do a nice cover of it here, but the cover should never be an album highlight. That does not speak well for your album at all.
No, and exit Chris Broderick right after this album too, and he probably left on his own accord. I'll guarantee you that, because he did not like the way things were going with this album, and possibly the one I'll talk about next.
Yeah, and Broderick, I mean, it's he didn't exactly do poorly for himself. He landed on his feet with In Flames, and I'm sure he's making plenty of money there as well.
Yeah.
But yes, let's move on to number 13 then. Slowly but surely working our way up. So, Darcy, what's your choice for number 13?
I'm not trying to be ironic here, but my choice for 13 is 13.
There it is.
Whereas you'll probably get the sense that I didn't quite agree with you on Cryptic Writings, so we'll talk about that one here in a little bit. But
that is fair.
But so this is the return of David Elson, and I got to see these guys in about David Elson rejoined the band in about 2010. I got to see him on that Gigant tour with Testament and Exodus, and I got to see them on that tour, and then David stayed with the band after that. This is his return, but this is one of those albums that has some good songs. What is this? This is the first album that they had this guy, Johnny K, his name is, on production. By the way, any of these albums, they're all co-produced by Dave Mustaine. He always has his hand in the fire. So whoever he's with, he's pretty much probably, telling him exactly the way things are going to go. But so this is Elson's return. And I'd say that what I do like about this album, which is there's not a lot of bright spots on here. There's a lot of material on here that is actually older material that was just kind of reworked and ready to go again. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, I do love that first single, Public Enemy #1. I think it's very catchy. You could throw it in the same pot as the song Super Collider. It's very just catchy stuff. It's not going to blow you away. There's some horrible stuff on here like Guns, Drugs, and Money. Absolute pile of shit for a song. But there's a couple other bright spots on here for me. Number one bright spot is a song called Black Swan. I love the opening guitar riff for that. It flows throughout the whole thing really good. And Millennium of the Blind, which is one of those older rework songs. That's probably one of the highlights. But I think, we talked a little bit about Chris Broderick. I think this is kind of where things kind of started to downward spiral, into Super Collider, and then obviously his exit from the band. And, like I said, first album back with David, but this is my number 13 is 13.
All righty. So, Mike, let's pass it over to you. And what do you have at number 13?
I have Euthanasia.
All right.
As an ex-landscape photographer, I actually love that cover. I love the colour scheme in it and everything. So I know a lot of people actually just start by hating the cover, but to be honest, that's the highlight for me. The Reckoning Day was a reasonable song. Train of Consequences was an okay song, but I'm not into a Tout Le Monde, and I can't say the font's that small on there now. But I found the last time I listened to this album, because I picked this up recently for about £1.50 or something, and I thought I'm just going to give it another try because I hated it so much. This was the album that was responsible. This was absolutely the nail in the coffin for me. Jumpin' Ship in '94. I picked this up on cassette at the time, and I absolutely couldn't stand it. Apart from them first two songs, again, like Super Collider, the first two songs were passable. There's more than that that's passable, but it isn't. I can't recall what they are now. I just know if I listened to it, I wouldn't hate it as much as Super Collider, but it's never been one I've been sufficiently interested in, to be honest. And that was it. That was me done, as I said, save for that car journey where I picked up the last one I spoke about. But I just, there was that much wrong with Megadeth for me at the time. Like, Mustaine started wearing this white frilly shirt, and I just remember thinking, what? He seems to be acting older than he is. What do you want to do? Be some sort of elder statesman, sort of. I mean, I don't know how old he was at the time, but it was only 4 short years from Rust in Peace, and it felt like a lifetime away. So that was it. I shut up shop after that for a long time with them, and yeah, I can't honestly rate it any higher than that.
That's fair. I'll talk about that one in a little while, but I very much get where you're coming from with that album. Yeah, it's a period where it does feel like Megadeth is really trying to be something other than Megadeth. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. All right, so let's see. Then I'm up.
I do apologize for all this coughing as well, by the way. I've been ill all week.
Oh, no worries at all. No worries at all. All right, for my number 13, I didn't forget about this one. It just was like a step or two higher. World Needs a Hero. This was one I had not heard until the past couple of weeks. I don't think I even knew this album existed, to be honest. That's how much I had checked out on Megadeth by the time this album was released, because I would have remembered this cover. It's relatively graphic. And I'm looking just like, when the hell did this album come out? Okay, let's see what it's like. So again, I don't have much mileage with this album. What I've heard is very much in line with what you guys have said. It's an album that feels like it lacks any kind of direction. putting it in chronologic terms, to me it feels like they're realizing that yes, Risk was a big flop on multiple levels, and so they have to start the rebuilding process. And when you do that, you have to start somewhere. You're rarely going to go from making a complete mess, of an album like Risk to bouncing right back to full form. It's going to, for most bands, it takes a couple of albums at least to get back to top form. So this one feels like, okay, it's the first step back on the path. There are a few songs here and there that I don't mind. I'm trying to pull up the track list right now to remind myself. It's some of the later tracks on this one. I don't mind the return to Hangar. Darcy, I think you mentioned Death and the Fugitive Mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are some tracks, that are okay. Yeah, again, I don't know if I'd put them on a best of Megadeth compilation or not, but there are items here that are passable. But once again, there's a lot of very mediocre to subpar material too, and it just feels like they're trying to go into too many things. Not only does the music feel like it's rambling, Dave feels like he's rambling, even by Dave's standards. It just feels like there's not a lot of focus or direction here. But yeah, and that's probably responsive. Like we fucked up pretty bad, and now we got to try to get this show back on the road somehow. And so they're at least, you get the sense they recognize the error of their ways, and they just got to start rebuilding the dam here. But yeah, this is one that could end up a slot or two lower if I play it more. Maybe it climbs a slot higher. I don't know, but it's definitely down in this part of the discography. It's not going to climb very high ever, I don't think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, definitely fair enough on that one.
Yes, I don't think any of us are ranking that one too high. But now we've got to rank number 12. So Darcy, what do you have in the number 12 slot?
Well, it's one that you showed a couple albums ago. But to be honest with you, this is I'm right in the I like these albums, and I guess part of it would be that I did get to experience these albums from day one, and continued that Megadeth journey. So maybe it would make more sense to me that I have a closer relationship to some of these albums. But my number 12 is Cryptic Writings, and by no means a bad album, but I did touch on this one a bit. I said the on Risk, they used the same producer. Actually, this guy Dan Huff worked with Dave Mustaine on this album, then again on Risk. But and I said also that the bad songs, let's make them worse. But there is some great tracks on here. I would say I really, really enjoy 6 to 7 out of 11 of these tracks. I don't mind what they were trying at the time. This is 1997. I would say, to me, this is a better album than Reload. I don't know about you Metallica fans, but this to me is a better album than Reload. Better than
Load.
Not
saying a whole lot, Darcy.
No, better than Load, maybe not. But hey, you know what? I like some of those. Whatever. But you had mentioned the song the Disintegrators. That is it's fast, it's speedy, it's Megadeth. But there's some very kind of experimental, just off the beaten path stuff on here. You had mentioned The Secret Place, which is probably one of the weaker songs for me. Sin, but the best stuff on here, I don't mind songs like Trust or Almost Honest, but this one finishes up really strong, and I'll leave it at that. Check out the tracks She-Wolf, Vortex, or FFF, which means Fight for Freedom. Great album closer. The last 3 tracks are really good. I really enjoy it. I did mention that the old logo, but they did kind of try to redeem themselves on the side here with that. I get the gist. Even the reissue, they came back with a black cover instead of this one, but this is my original CD. And the cover, let's just say it's shit. There's no Vic Rattlehead on here. And bands did lose sight of their, besides Iron Maiden, a lot of bands did lose sight of their, long serving mascot at this in the 90s, but definitely a reflection of the 90s, but not a disaster by any means. I really do enjoy this album. Number 12, Cryptic Writings from 1997.
All right. So we're getting into albums that are getting a more positive thumbs up from Darcy here. That's cool. All right, Mike, what have you got at number 12?
My number 12, you'll have to give me a hand here, Darcy, because I don't know the names of the songs, but it's Endgame. I've got Endgame at number 12. And
Okay.
the reason I put this at number 12, can you just give me some names of some songs?
Well, it starts off with a real scorcher of a instrumental called Dialectical Chaos, but This Day We Fight, Head Crusher, 44 Minutes.
Yeah. What happened was, when I was doing the research for this video, this album kept coming up as so highly regarded. It was I found that all the time, everywhere I looked. Oh yeah, this is blah blah blah. But Endgame's where it's at, and all the rest of it. From the modern era. I mean, and the praise for Endgame was I found to be colossal. And when I got hold of that, on YouTube to listen to it, I was just like, what the fuck is this? This is nothing. This is fucking nothing at all. Now, there was some of those early songs you've mentioned, like This Day We Fight. That's quite a quick one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Head Crusher. But that 44 minutes, that's like something about the firefight and a pocket knife and all that. And I was just like, what the fuck am I listening to? I couldn't stand it. And I decided this sort of clump of albums that we're going to talk about, well, that I'm going to be talking about anyway, there's a clump of 4 albums that are quite new to me. I don't really know much about. And they would be interchangeable, but just for the fact that it gets so highly praised online and I had some expectations, I decided to punish it and put it at the bottom of these 4. So yeah, I don't get what all this fascination with that album is at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw the same patterns when I looked online, Mike. That Endgame gets a lot of praise. There are a subset of reviewers here and there, though, that had the same reaction you did. They're just like, why does everybody carrying on about with this album? So you're not alone in that boat. There are other people that, really didn't get that album either.
You're almost alone, but you're not alone.
It's a relatively small boat, but you do have company. All right. So let's see. So number 12 for me. Now, I am still in albums that to be honest, can do without. I've got to get at least 1 or 2 higher before I start getting into at least thumbs sideways territory. Number 12 for me, this is an album a lot of people like. It's their best-selling album of all time. Spoiler alert. I just don't like it. I never have liked it. It's Countdown to Extinction. In the summer of '92. And for me, something you said earlier, Darcy, rings very true about this album. This was Megadeth's chance to really take the heavy metal throne from Metallica. Metallica had done the Black Album, back in the fall of '91. They clearly were going to go in a very, digestible, commercial-friendly radio MTV kind of direction. They were done with making quote-unquote real heavy metal. Mustaine had chased Metallica for years, always wanting to knock them down off that throne. And so here's his chance. The throne is vacant. It's there for the taking. But Mustaine I feel like he got so focused on trying to one-up Metallica at every turn. His reaction was more like, oh, Metallica's going to make a bunch of MTV radio hits for, cheerleaders and jocks. I can do that too, and I'll do it better than they did. And that's what this album has always felt like to me. And one of the big problems with it is you hear that in Mustaine's vocals. Like you said earlier, Mike, Mustaine is spending way too much time trying to actually sing on this album. And Mustaine's not a great singer. He has a very good voice for thrash metal. You know, the snarl, the rolling R's. He's got that, angry, pissed off voice. It works great for that. But when he pulls those elements out and he's actually trying to sing a little bit, he loses all that venom and spite. And he's got a very mediocre voice for that kind of music. And we end up with a bunch of very mediocre songs on Countdown. Now, this is one I did. I bought it when it came out, and I played the hell out of this tape, and it never, ever grew on me. Quickly looking at the track list here, Skin of My Teeth is okay as an opener. I never liked Symphony of Destruction. I always felt it was like their attempt to, hey, we can have a big hit like Enter Sandman 2. Let's play the same, it's a heavy riff, but let's just play the same redundant riff over and over and keep saying the same thing over and over, and we'll get as many radio plays as Enter Sandman did, right? Architecture of Aggression, to this day, I can't tell you what that song sounds like. It has never stuck with me. Foreclosure of a Dream, everyone always made a big deal out of it. Oh, it's deep. It's his song for the farmers. And I get that, and that's nice that it's a topical song, but I don't like it as a song. I don't like Sweating Bullets. Sweating Bullets is a song I despise. That opening part where he's talking to himself is just silly in the I want to turn this off now kind of silly way. The chorus where he's all like sweating bullets. No, can't stand that song. There's good musicianship. What the guys are doing in the background with Friedman and company. They're playing some cool, interesting parts. It almost would be better as an instrumental record. And some of the later songs too. Towards the end, by the time you get to like Captive Honor and Ashes in Your Mouth, I just don't care about that album. I'm just ready for it to move and go away. This past couple weeks was the first time I had listened to this album in a long time. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a fair chance. Maybe I've grown, maybe I've matured, maybe I've gotten to that place in my life where I can appreciate it. No, I can't. I will never ever enjoy this album. It just feels like Megadeth does the Black Album and possibly does it worse, which is saying a lot because my dislike of the Black Album is well known to be way up there. So yeah, Countdown is a big miss for me. I know it's an album a lot of people do enjoy, but it is not for me. So I've got Countdown at 12. And to be honest, I am very surprised Countdown is high in my rankings. If we're going into this, I assumed Countdown would be like in my bottom 2 or 3. So it kind of speaks to the lack of quality on some of these albums we already talked about. The Countdown actually spots up from the bottom. I would have lost money betting on where Countdown ended up when you guys recommended for this a couple of weeks ago. All right, so that's my childhood trauma with Countdown to Extinction vented. I feel better already. Yeah. So let's move on to number 11. So Darcy, we're already in albums that you like some, so get us back on the positive train here. What have you got at number 11?
Well, you know what? I gotta say I'm a little surprised at a couple of your picks already. So I might just turn around and surprise you guys right now. Okay. But it just goes to show you, I'm gonna go back to that, that experience of buying these firsthand, things like that. But yeah, I'm a little shocked at that one, especially because you said you did buy it firsthand, but that's okay. I'll shock you right now then. So my number 11, and I got to be honest with you, at this point, this is not a bad album in any way, but I never took to this album like a lot of people did in 2016. This is my number 11. This is Dystopia. I think this is a great album, to be honest with you, but it is very one speed throughout this whole album. It's not I don't know. There's not a lot of changes in this one. It's very one-dimensional, but in a good way. the threat is real. Great track. By the way, this is the first one with Kiko on guitars, which, obviously they had to regroup after, in my eyes, Super Collider and 13, not strong albums whatsoever. They started off by going back to a very strong silver dominant logo with obviously a computer generated photo of Vic Rattlehead, but I have always loved this cover. I love the colors. There's some silvers in here with blues that are just very appealing to me. This cover is very appealing. The title, whatever, but track wise, and they used Chris Adler did all the drumming on this, so they didn't really have an actual full-time member. But yeah, there's some good stuff on here. The title track Dystopia is really good. Which one did they win the Grammy on? Actually, that song for the album or the song? I think they won it for the actual album. But Fatal Illusion, Death from Within. There is a cover song on here, which until the new album here, The Sick, the Dying, the Dead, they always threw cover. There's a cover of Foreign Policy on here, which isn't too bad, but Poisonous Shadows, that's a good one. Death from Within, Fatal Illusion. But I just found it, I guess the memorable factor for me is I don't always remember this one. I can't hum along with it or anything like that, but it's good. Like I said, it's good, just not great Megadeth. But so there's my number 11, 2013 Dystopia.
All right. Oh, hang on, I've got to go now. I'll do mine and then get a drink. I'll have to get a drink.
Okay, that's fine, no problem, Mike. So what do you have at number 11?
Number 11. It's going to be the kind of a stupid review, to be honest. It's Cryptic Writings, and I'm going to embarrass myself here and say I don't know the names of any of the songs on it. I don't know. I can't remember how any of it goes or anything at all, because it's just been an awful lot of Megadeth recently, and I've been trying to fit in a lot of death metal around it. But I really, every time I've listened to Cryptic Writings, I've ended up really enjoying the album, even though I couldn't tell you anything about it. It's one of the ones during this thing that I've decided that I need to probably buy that one. It'll only be cheap, and I'm going to get it again, because every time I have listened to it, I have been pleasantly surprised. So, like I say, I can't really justify. I'm only going off memory of enjoying it, but I actually have no memory of the album. So, as ridiculous as that is, that's all I can offer for this one, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
I will improve. Don't worry.
No, some albums, yeah, you sometimes things don't stand out. All right, so yeah, then I'm up. So yep, Mike, if you want to grab a drink, you've got some time here. So okay, number 11 for me. Here we're getting into some albums I think are pretty decent. We're out of the albums that I am down on at this point, finally. And so coming in at the 11 is 13. So 13 minus 11, and it is 2 places I think higher than Darcy had it. So somehow the math works out, but don't look at the numbers too much. 13, this for me is kind of like what Mike just said about Dystopia. It's an album that I think overall is decent. There's not a lot on it that stands out for me. I can't point to a lot of songs and say these are killers. This was, an all-time favorite. But there's not many songs on it that bother me either. We're getting to the point where it's like, okay, the track list is a little more even. Sure, there's some variations, but I feel like it's kind of a relatively even-keeled album. It's got a little different tone overall than some of the others. It does feel like a kind of strange album where it's at chronologically, that it comes, after Endgame, a bigger, more energetic sound. And then it comes before, which, we've already talked about, which doesn't sound very good at all. The sound feels a little slower, a little more somber, a little darker at times. So it was a big shift from in-game. Not what I expected them to follow in-game with at all. So it's not a bad album at all. It just doesn't feel, it's not chock full of hits. It's not one that I would really probably go back and play very much. It's simply because the songs don't stand out. But it's the kind of album I can put on in the background while I'm working or something and just kind of, let it roll. Now, again, I'm scanning the track list again. And now, Darcy, you're right. The song Guns, Drugs, and Money, that had promised the title, but boy, that chorus there is no life to that chorus at all. It is kind of dead.
Yeah. Dead.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so there are some spots on it that fall a little short, but even that one's better than a lot of the tracks on some of the other albums we've already moved past. So yeah, 13 for me. It's one of these kind of in-between albums. Wouldn't grade it super high, but I'm not going to trash the album or anything either. It's okay as a Megadeth album goes. Let's see. All right, before we move to number 10, just to check, I'm getting a little bit of a warbly sound on Mike. Are either of you hearing that too?
Yeah, I hear it.
All right, let's see. Mike, do you hear it?
Yeah.
All right. Have either of you changed anything on headphones or volume settings?
No.
It's just happened to me in the past. I think it's probably me. I'll come out and back in.
Okay. All right. Let's give Mike a chance, to reboot for just a moment. While he's doing that, just want to say thanks to everybody hanging out in the chat. Again, sorry if I'm not typing as many replies as I normally would, but trying to keep everybody here on track as well. But yeah, hope everyone's enjoying it. Had a good week. It's been a crazy week for a lot of people with Hurricane Ian kind of wreaking havoc. For anybody that's down in Florida or over on the Atlantic coast, I hope you're doing okay right now. Me and mine got pretty lucky that the storm tracked further east than it was originally slated to. But yeah, hope folks are just able to take it easy and enjoy the show tonight. Let's see. Let's bring Mike back in and see how we're doing now.
Is that any better?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
So what? Had to get the Megadeth dad joke in there eventually. All right. I think that worked just fine, Mike. So I think, are we? Yes, we are. We're into top 10 time. So
yeah.
Darcy, lead us into the top 10, please, sir.
I just got to say, too, that those of you that are experiencing these storms and things like that, I hope everybody's staying safe. Where I am in Canada, I literally have no concept of what you're going through. Just like a lot of you probably wouldn't have a concept of minus 45 Celsius weather that I go through. But I'd much rather go through the cold than deal with one of those. I saw pictures on my computer this morning, the devastation. It's just stay safe, everybody. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I'm glad you did. And Darcy, one question.
Yeah.
What's Celsius?
Well, I don't even know what that
American.
would convert that for these guys. Minus 45 Celsius would be ridiculous. What would that be in Fahrenheit?
I don't know, but we're going to find out.
You would die. You would just die. That's what would happen.
Minus 45 degrees C. This is exactly what Google is for. 45. Well, it didn't take the minus sign. 45 degrees Celsius is 113 degrees Fahrenheit, but we're going in the wrong direction there.
Yeah, minus.
Yeah. Show results for. Well, we'll try one more time. Come on, Google. You can do it. It says that it's minus 49 Fahrenheit.
There you go.
Okay.
That's cold. That'd
be cold. Yeah. I don't do cold anymore. I had my fill of that living up north for a few years. And yeah, hurricane's not fun, but I will stay down here. For anybody, just to follow up on that, for anybody who's listening, I posted it earlier in the chat, but if folks joined later, I did check in with Aaron, the metal theologian. He lives over there on the coast. He was much more directly in the path of Ian. I checked in with him earlier. He says he and the family are doing fine. They're on relatively high ground, so they were not having any problems with flooding or stuff when we chatted around lunchtime today. So, Aaron, if you're, I don't know, they could be without power or something, but if you're listening to this, buddy, we are thinking about you, and hopefully you and the family are still safe.
Okay.
Right. So,
top 10 time. Top 10 time. Here it is. Number 10, United Abominations, 2007. So what's going on at this time? This is kind of the first time that Dave has really formed a, an album with a full band again since 2001. So 6 years had passed. There was that period right after World Needs a Hero that, hey, are we even going to have Megadeth anymore? Stuff like that, which I will talk about soon. Cover wise, this is one of my least favorite Vic Rattleheads. This is anybody in the comments, if you can back me up here. I remember this as being some sort of contest to come up with a Vic Rattlehead. I think there was several. There was a one on the back cover. There was also something in, similar there. All, kind of the same type of Vic Rattlehead, but I believe this was some sort of contest versus, an actual artist coming in and doing this cover. I could be wrong that as far as that goes, but what do we got? First album with actually Glenn Drover. Glenn Drover, if you know him, he's from a Canadian band, Elodian, or if I'm saying that right, I don't know the exact title of the band, but he was also in King Diamond for a while. So he comes in on guitars, and you got Glenn. So two brothers, Glenn and Sean Drover, and first album for James Lomenzo. But there's some great tracks on this one. I really, really enjoy Sleepwalker, the opening track, really good song. Gears of War, it's starting kind of a bit of a, there's Aaron right there.
Okay, no pressure, but we have to put on a good show for Aaron because apparently things have gone south.
Okay, now we better get serious here then. Okay. There actually is a cover of a Tula Mode on this album. And I believe Dave did that because at the time he was in a real legal battle with David Elson. And I don't think he wanted to give David any more royalties or things like that to do with that song. So they redid it with Christina Scabia. And which band is she from? I forget. Luna Coil or
Lacuna Coil, yeah.
Or whatever. Okay. That, yeah. I don't know that band well. Sorry if I said that wrong, but the good is good on this album, but there's a couple duds on here. Burnt Ice, not a good song. You're Dead. But check out the track, Sleepwalker, Washington is Next. The title track is really good, United Abominations. Gears of War, Blessed Are the Dead. There is my number 10, United Abominations from, 2007. I actually got to see them on this tour. That is the t-shirt I have hanging up in the back. They opened up for Heaven and Hell, the only time I personally ever got to see Ronnie James Dio. And the opening band, there was 3 bands that night, but the opening band was supposed to be Down. But I guess at that point, Philip was so fucked up on drugs that he couldn't even make it to the show. And, I would have loved to see them because I'm a huge Pepper Keenan fan, but I honestly I don't give two shits about Phil. I especially that night, he kind of pissed off the whole crowd. Yep, Phil's not here. We're not. But at least I got to see Megadeth and Heaven and Hell on that tour. So that is my number 10. Sorry for babbling on.
No, that's okay. And thanks to Charles and Chromium Dockside for confirming that, yeah, it was a contest from DeviantArt. Okay. Which explains a lot, because I didn't know that. And I was wondering what the heck, because that cover, yes, is very out of step with their other covers. All right, Mike, your turn. What have you got starting off your top 10?
Same as Darcy with that one. And it was the songs Sleepwalker and Washington is Next that was the big pull for me with that. But there was some other ones, and again, this one and the next album, this is the last couple of albums where I have no idea what I'm talking about. I will knock it up a gear after this a little bit. But yeah, I actually thought I might pick up the next couple of albums as well, because again, they're only cheap, and there was enough on there. There was enough meat on the bone for me to think, well, I should probably pick these up and give them another listen, properly over time. So yeah, that's same as Darcy, my number 10. But I'm definitely sort of thumb sideways sort of period now,
Understandable. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. For my number 10, I've got one that, yes, Mike, you commented on a little bit earlier. For me, number 10 is Euthanasia. And I had kind of a similar experience to you with this one, Mike, where when it came out, again, I already talked about Countdown to Extinction. That album had not left a good taste in my mouth. When this one came out, though, Megadeth was still a pretty big deal, and metal hadn't completely gone haywire completely just yet. So, there was still a lot of hubbub when this album came out. But I did not go out and buy it right away like I had Countdown. I was kind of like, I think I'll wait and see. I remember distinctly the local indie store had it, and they were offering it. You could get it with like a bundle, the CD and a T-shirt, and it was a pretty good price for the two, like $25 to get the bundle. And even then, I was just like, I'm not sure I'm going to want a Megadeth shirt from this era. I think I'll hold off. Being a poor college student, every dollar counted, and it's like, I don't think I want to spend the extra $10 on the T-shirt until I'm more familiar with the album. And so, yeah, at the time, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. I also noticed that it was also about the time where this style of metal was getting a lot less attention, even though, there was hype about the album coming out, and people like, oh, yeah, the new Megadeth. On the local college radio metal show, for example, this got no play at all. You would think, this was one of the biggest bands on the planet putting out a brand new album. You think they would have been playing it every Friday and Saturday night. And I honestly don't remember them ever playing a single song off of it. By the time this was out, they're in the Midwest part of the U.S., if you didn't sound like Pantera or Cannibal Corpse, they did not give a fuck about you anymore. And this does not sound like Pantera or Cannibal Corpse. The adjective that has always stuck with me with this album, and I see it in a lot of reviews for the album too, is catchy. The band is writing a lot of songs that have a more catchy vibe to them. Over time, the album has grown on me a little bit. I can appreciate there's good musicianship going on. You've got Marty Friedman in the band. You're going to be able to do fairly well, unless it's called Risk. So I can appreciate the musicianship's not bad. The songs, as an album overall, I do feel it's better than Countdown. That's why I've got it ranked higher than Countdown. But again, there's not a lot on here. You really feel like Megadeth was trying to embrace this more. We're writing catchy songs, so people will listen to us more, right? We can follow Metallica down that pathway, right? So yeah, that's always bothered me about this album some too. So yeah, I'm right here in the thumb sideways section of the catalog. I don't dislike the album, but it's not one I go back to and revisit hardly ever. It just doesn't grab me that way. But yeah, that's Euthanasia. That's my take for number 10. So now we have to get a little deeper into the top 10 with number 9. And so, wrong button here. So let's go back and click that one instead to bring Darcy front and center so he can tell us what his number 9 is.
Yeah, make my fat head even fatter. Thank you. I had kind of touched on this. I generally on my channel, it takes me a while to, I guess, absorb a new album as far as a ranking video goes. And sometimes it's a full year where I can kind of place it. But this was probably, and I knew for the sake of this ranking that I would have to rank the new album, which I'm going to hold up right away. We'll just get that over with. But my number 9 is The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead.
Okay.
And I am pleasantly surprised how much I do like this album. I think this possibly could only go up rather than down, or just stay right where it is. Time will tell. But I think I have enough spins under my belt to be able to honestly feel good about putting this at number 9. I really like the album. At first, I thought the artwork was a little, I don't know, a touch cheesy, but it really grew on me. I really do like it. Same guy who did Dystopia cover did this cover. Whatever, I forget his name, but you know, and besides like I said in one of my videos, I have nothing against this Ice-T guy. Oh, well, not Ice-T guy. I absolutely know who Ice-T is. I'm not a hip hop fan or guy, but you know, game over, bitches. I just can't get. Or anything that starts off with yo man or something like that. That's kind of a turn off for me. But I actually can look past that little 21 seconds. There's some good stuff on this album. The title track, maybe not the best track to lead off this album, but it's growing on me. Night Stalkers, you know, besides that little Ice-T bit, not a bad track at all. The worst song on here, I feel, in my opinion, is called Junkie. Not a great song. And I think even on the hype sticker, they said singles, which included this song called Killing Time, which has a lead-in kind of intro called Psychopathy. Not that great, but Soldier On, great track. kind of my my hidden gem in this album is Mission to Mars. I know the lyrics are corny as hell. You know, the very catchy riff, I do like it. And I had also mentioned that We'll Be Back is probably my favorite album closer since My Last Words, which is a long time ago. And honestly, that's saying a lot because it really is a great track. It's there is some heavy stuff on here. A lot of mid-pace, nothing too slow, but overall, I'm impressed with this album. I'll be curious to where you guys put it, but yeah, number 9 is it's not a bad spot. So right there.
All right, Darcy, I have to ask. So does this mean you want to be an astronaut? Do you want to?
Yes.
Wanna?
Yeah.
Blast off.
you?
Yeah, blast off. I'm on my way.
All right. So while Darcy is taking off into orbit, we'll jump over to Mike and see what Mike's got for his number 9 on the list.
Number 9.
I'm gonna hold it up.
What you're gonna guess?
I'm gonna. No, go ahead. Let's go.
We'll count to 3. You hold it up, and I will tell you what's on my list.
Okay.
But 1, 2, 3. The system has failed.
Well done.
Yeah, I seen them on this tour. They were supported by Diamond Head, and every time I've seen Megadeth, they've been absolutely diabolical, to be quite honest. They've never had a good sound or anything, and I just went along. I didn't even know what album cycle this was or anything. I've had to look back and find out. You know, I knew roughly when I went, and I sort of Googled the concert and realised that it would be this tour cycle. And at the time, they were not on my radar anymore. I was done with them, but I went along for the night out and the company and just to enjoy a gig. But revisiting it for this video, it's a bit like what I've been saying about United Abominations and Cryptic Writings, and these are albums I scarcely have heard, but there's been enough there to make me sort of check out prices on eBay and think, yeah, that's not going to cost me very much at all. I can probably buy all these albums I've been saying I'm going to buy for the price of one new CD these days. So this is another one I'm going to check out. It's another one. I don't even know any of the songs because I've just been bombarded with so much Megadeth recently, having kind of just fallen off them for that long. So yeah, still thumbs sideways, but yeah, I'm probably going to pick this album up.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I tell you what I've noticed as well during all these albums that we've been talking about, well, that I've been talking about anyway for the last 4 albums or something. It struck me while I was listening for this video how much Dave Mustaine sounds like when he's not doing his thrash singing and he's just doing this sort of ploddy, mediocre voice. How much he sounds like Alice Cooper. Does anyone else picked up on that? I really hear Alice Cooper in a lot of his vocal deliveries when he's not being Mustaine enough. You know, the whiny sort of.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
No more, Mr. Nice Guy. There you go.
Never do that again.
No, that's my best Dave Mustaine, I guess. But no, I never thought about Alice Cooper sounding like Dave Mustaine. Honestly, no.
Yeah, really jumped out at me like loads of times during this listening.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it either. I do think that he did really nail it on that Alice Cooper cover that we won't sing again. But
yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, for number 9 on my list, I'm actually going to follow suit. We're all synced up here because I've also got The System Has Failed at number 9. This one, I didn't realize at the time, but yeah, this one apparently was supposed to be a Mustaine solo project. It was supposed to just be released under his name. It was not originally meant as a Megadeth album, and then label interference and stuff and things happen, and ended up with eventually it got tagged, but the official lineup on the album is really just Dave Mustaine. There's lots of good guest appearances. The most interesting one, of course, is having Chris Poland back on guitar, and it's really if nothing else, neat to hear Chris get a chance to play with Dave again. It's, for me, I like the album overall. It's got some very strong songs on it. It has some misses too. I think it gets off to a really good start with things like Blackmail the Universe and Kick the Chair is pretty good. It does tail off a bit at the end. This is when I feel like side A is stronger than side B, but this one also gets the the thumbs up for me simply because it was the first really good album, or at least good album, they had made in a while from my point of view. Looking at my rankings again, we've already going back to 92. I've already ranked Countdown lower than this, Euthanasia lower than this, Cryptic lower than this, Risk lower than this, The System or The World Needs a Hero lower than this. So you'd had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums in a row that I'm at best lukewarm on to fairly slightly positive. So the fact that this came out and actually was pretty decent, relatively heavy, relatively forceful, even if it wasn't a full band, still having Poland get to show off some of the album, it felt like, okay, there actually may still be some mileage in Megadeth after all. Because by this point, I had absolutely no faith that Mustaine could do anything that I would want to hear. But there we go. So System Has Failed from 2004. It's funny to think that album is almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
But like Mike, I've got it ranked right there at number 9. All right. So Darcy, so let's see, that puts us exactly halfway through the catalog. So we've covered the bottom half of the catalog and we've got the top half to go. So Darcy, what have you got at number 8?
Well, and I was thinking too, hopefully, some of some of the viewers that have hopped off the old Megadeth train are getting, you know, a little help of, you know, what our thinking's at. And, you know, you guys both said that you did hop off the train. So hopefully we're guiding you here. But this is really, honestly, this mid part is really strong for me. I don't have much where you would say this is interchangeable. Yeah, there's similarities for sure, but my number 8 is Endgame from what is this, 2009. So this is Chris Broderick's introduction into the band. The number one goal, I think, going into this album for Dave was just to fill it full of riffs and guitar solos. There is an abundant, those of you that are fans of guitar solos, there's a shitload in here, put it that way. It starts off with a instrumental called Dialectical Chaos, which is awesome. It is a ripper. Right into This Day We Fight, actually, and Mike had mentioned that song. It's that song's actually based on a true life event of some I think a hostage takeover of a bank, bringing a pocket knife to whatever you said there.
Yeah, that's the 44 minutes. It's a famous, and I forget the location. I think it was in Florida, but yeah, it was a case where the bank robber guys, you know, had automatic weapons, and the local police responding still were basically using like service revolvers. It was a big point in American law enforcement history because it was the point where you start after that in reaction to, you know, cops just absolutely getting pummeled. You saw a big swing in the types of armament and weaponry that were being given even at the local police level because of that incident.
Yeah, this one's like just a kind of a true Dave Mustaine world events album. They're or even a movie inspired. This Day We Fight was based on, I think, inspired by Lord of the Rings, actually. If 44 minutes was the one we just talked about. 1320, I think that is the length that a drag car goes from the way it starts to the way it finishes, actually, on that one.
That's a quarter-mile track, which I will convert into kilometers for you if you give me a minute.
Yeah, there's lots of great. I really do enjoy Chris Broderick on here. I thought he was a real breath of fresh air of what was happening prior to that little bit of a lull. But yeah, those songs I mentioned, or it wraps up with a really good, actually, Endgame, the title track. Check that one out. It is really good. It's got a cool breakdown in the middle. And then The Right to Go Insane, the last track, I really enjoy that one too. So this is my number 8, 2009's Endgame. And I do like the picture of Vic on the back cover here too. So some of those, I wish the back cover was actually the front cover, those type of albums, but there's my number 8.
All right, good deal. And yes, it's 402 meters.
Okay.
So making sure our units are converted for all of our friends. We've got quite the international cast tonight. All right, Mike, what have you got ranked starting off your top 8?
Number 8 for me is Countdown.
I'm going to grab a drink.
When this came out, this seemed to appeal to fans that weren't thrash fans, you know, and then they decided, oh yeah, I like thrash now because I like the new Megadeth album, and it wasn't a thrash album. When that video came out, I just thought, for a guy with his ability, what the hell is that? That is like first month of owning a guitar and being able to knock out a power chord type of riff. You know, I know there's obviously some other good intricate work there, but I just, like you were saying earlier, it is them lot trying to compete with the Black Album, and it's not working. The Hello Me, It's Me Again and stuff, You know, he's got about the best voice in the business for pulling off something like that. I just don't think anyone should pull off something like that, you know, or attempt it. But and Foreclosure of a Dream, the song Countdown to Extinction and stuff, they're okay, they're passable, but it's stuff like, for me, the real pieces of shit is stuff like Captive Honor, Psychotron's diabolical. It's just shit. Ashes in Your Mouth, I never liked that. Yeah, I think I was just kind of disgusted in the whole thing at the time, and I just, you know, I don't even really know why I give Euthanasia a chance after this, on reflection, but I did. Yeah, I actually just I've never understood the hype for this album. I actually think the hype comes from people who weren't fans of Megadeth prior to this album. I think that's what sort of I have in my head, my opinion of it.
Yeah. Oh, and you're absolutely right, and that's a great point, Mike. For folks that weren't around at that time, younger fans, they may not understand that, but when albums, yes, like this one and the Black Album were coming out, these bands were getting very popular with people who had shit on these bands for the previous 10 years. You know, and, you know, high school, you know, me liking Metallica, everybody's just like, why the fuck do you listen to that? But all of a sudden the Black Album comes out and those same people are just like, Exit Night, yeah. Just like, the fact that you like this album tells me there's something wrong with this album. And yes, Countdown was very much the same. I'd have people be like, you know, oh, you're into Megadeth? I love Megadeth. And I'm like looking, I'm just like, no, you like Countdown to Extinction. Do you? But that's what you like. You don't like any other Megadeth albums, do you? I one funny example of this. Moving into college one year, like, you know, literally moving into the dorm room, your roommate shows up, we're trying to, you know, move the furniture around and unpack shit and all that, and like, you know, like I plug in the, you know, boom box. I'm like, I'll throw on some music. You know, what do you like? She's like, I don't know, what have you got? I'm just like, I've got Metallica. She's like, oh, I love Metallica. I'm like, okay, cool. So I put on Kill 'Em All. And he just stands there and looks at me. He's like, what's that? I'm like, that's Metallica. You said you like Metallica. And he was just quiet for a couple of seconds, like, do you have the Black Album? I'm just like, oh, fuck, I'm living with a douchebag. So, hey, it really is, you know, for folks like, you know, Mike and myself, when these albums came out, they weren't just disappointing on a musical level. The fact that all of a sudden we were having to deal with, you know, this new expanded audience of people who were claiming to love this stuff but had never shown any interest in this stuff before was very, very irritating. It was something that, yeah, kind of added to the sour taste in our mouths about some of the albums right here from this period. But with that, I will get off my soapbox and figure out what my number 8 is, because I guess I'm up in the batting order. All right, number 8 for me is Dystopia. This is, yeah, as Darcy mentioned before, first one with Kiko, who's played with Angra, you know, very cool power metal band out of Brazil. And this album has a lot of good things going for it. You know, looks pretty slick, sounds pretty slick, does have a lot of good songs on it. This is one I could see over time maybe climbing a bit higher in my rankings. If there's one thing holding this album back a bit for me, this is one where I feel like I get kind of tired of Dave's ranting about his politics by this point. You know, whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, he's been on the same shtick for a long time by the point this album comes out. And it's kind of like, you know, we get it, Dave. You're born again. Don't trust the man. Everybody's out to get you. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just feeling pretty tired by this point. It feels like on this album he had dialed it up a notch, where it was a little more overt, and I didn't need that. And some people that doesn't bother. Some people agree with his politics. A lot of people always profess that they don't listen to the lyrics and they don't really care about them. I'm someone who usually does. I try to sit down and figure out what the songs are about and such. And it's not just that I don't always see eye to eye with Mustaine politically. It's just the fact that it's like when you're listening to old timers go on and on about the same things that they dislike, that you've heard them complain about for 30 years. And it's just like, can you not talk about something else for a change? We get it. We know your stance on these things. We don't need yet another album putting out the exact same points of view and your exact same stances. It's the only thing that holds the album back. But musically, I think it's very good. Kiko's a nice addition. Again, I hated to see Broderick go. I thought he was fantastic, especially on one of the albums I haven't talked about yet. But Kiko comes in and does really good. Mustaine's always been really, really good at finding that other top-notch guitar player to complement himself. And this album, yeah, it's got a lot going for it. It's an impressive album. I just wish Mustaine would have branched out a little bit in terms of material at this point. It's a minor complaint. I still have the album ranked pretty high, and again, I could see it moving higher with more listens. It's an album I don't have a ton of mileage with, but yeah. I do like the album. We're very much in the point here where these albums, I'm giving them a positive thumbs up, even if I'm going to nitpick some things here and there that I don't like. So, yep, number 8 for me is that one.
You touched on some, like, I feel, and I think, I don't know if I said it, but that Dystopia is more of a recovery album in my eyes than, and maybe that's just where he wanted to get back to, I'm not going to say his roots, but just a solid, thrashy metal album versus, 13 and Super Collider. They were way out to lunch on those albums for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it reestablished them. And, 2016, you had some good albums coming out. I mean, you had Anthrax had a brand new album out. I can't list them all right now off the top of my head, but it was a decent time for metal around 2016. And I thought they really rebounded with a decent album with Dystopia. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point, Darcy. Yeah, again, chronologically, this one comes after a couple of albums that Super Collider is not only in our list, that's an album that most people rank quite low, and 13 is an album not a lot of people gush about. But then, yeah, so again, kind of expectations kind of working their way down, and then Dystopia comes out. It's like, oh wow, check this out. That's actually got a lot of cool material on it. So yeah, very good point that it's Mustaine reinventing and rebounding once again, which he's been able to do several times over the years. All right, so on to number 7. So, Mr. Darcy, if you would please.
Number 7. So at this point, I did not get to see Megadeth for 14 years had passed since I got to see them last, and got to see them on this tour, I guess the same year as Mike got to see them. Was that around 2004 you got to see them?
2005.
Okay, so I saw them in 2004. So here is my number 7. At this point, and Alan touched on this, this was supposed to be a Dave Mustaine solo project, rebounding from all his trouble with his wrists and his hands, and was he ever going to play again? He hired a awesome somebody said they like that song. Okay. He hired an awesome rhythm section, and one of the highlights on this album for me too, as Alan, you said it, is Chris Poland. His soloing in here, you absolutely can tell every solo that Chris is on in this album. He just has that distinct, brings me right back to Peace Sells. But this album to me, it's got a little special extra meaning too. I got to go see these guys again on. Actually, I still have the T-shirt from 2004 I'm wearing. a couple, I actually got a speeding ticket going to this concert, so I had to pay that shit. I got to see them. Exodus opened for them, and a little bit of background before I tell you a couple tracks, but Exodus had just fired Steve. Zetro got fired, and we didn't even know that when we showed up. And the guy from Skin Lab, what's his name? Steve from Skin Lab filled in on vocals. He actually did a really good job. I got to meet Rick Hunholt at the time after the Exodus had played. He come and literally stood right beside me almost, it felt like. And at the time, this was the first time I've ever seen, the Drover brothers in the band, and James McDonough was on bass. I don't really know what all he was in, but it was just such a great show. We had a few beers. We were drenched in sweat, and it was 18 years ago, but I really enjoy this album. It starts off super strong. Blackmail the Universe is super heavy track. Right into Die Dead Enough, good song. Kick the Chair is one of my favorites. I love that guitar riff going into that song.
Yep.
Scorpion, Tears in a Vial. And actually the track back in the day, every band member got up from Exodus and they all stood on the stage and sang that song back in the day. It's kind of a tribute to their days playing Ruthies, and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool. There is a track on here that I've always assumed, and maybe somebody can help me in the comments. There is a track called Something That I'm Not. And I always thought that was about Lars. That's it just feels like it fits. Let me know if I'm off base on that song, if you know the album well enough to comment on that. But Something I'm Not, is it about Lars from Metallica? But yeah, this is a great album. Shadows of Death, My Kingdom. My number 7 from the comeback album, 2004, System Has Failed.
Yep. Yeah.
That's when he done all them remasters as well, didn't he? That year. He done all the knob fiddling with the remasters and put made a mess of them.
Yeah, he you're right. You said it. He did make a mess of. They need to reissue those properly.
Yeah, that's a funny point. I hadn't thought about it that way until you said it, Darcy. It's not often you see the album that was supposed to be the solo project actually be the reboot for the main band. Usually that's where they wander off and do something really out of character, like Black Sabbath's Seventh Star, or things like that. But yeah, this album that was not supposed to be a Megadeth album ends up being one of the better Megadeth albums in a long time, and kind of gets the band, which wasn't actually a band at the time, back on track. Life's wacky sometimes. All right, Mike, it's your turn. What have you got at number 7?
Number 7, well, I haven't shown the new album yet. But the new album turned me back to picking this one up, because I've really been enjoying the new album, and I thought, well, how much different can it be? I'm going to go back and try it, and I really enjoy it. I don't, even though it's obviously an older album and stuff, I don't know this anywhere near as well as I know the new album. But I was put off it at the time because I don't know if there's an actual name for being a guitar solo phobe, but I can't stand noodling and things like that. And I'd watched some videos of that Keiko guy. He's obviously got ability and stuff. And there was some parts when I first put this album on, when it was new, when I give it a cursory listen, I thought, oh no, everything just sounds like an excuse for noodling. So I just cast it aside. I didn't want to know. But I recently picked it up again because, again, it's cheap. And I just thought, well, I'll dig back into it. And the songs that Darcy's mentioned, Fatal Illusion, and I like the title track, Dystopia. The font is terrible here. But the whole album in general sits quite well with me now that I've got over myself. It isn't as overtly noodly as I had it pegged, and I can hear a lot of history in this album from earlier periods of Megadeth. And some people might say that he's maybe rehashing old riffs and stuff like that. And I would be that type of person that would criticize somebody for doing something like that. But I just don't feel like that about this album. I don't feel critical about it, to be honest. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm starting to enjoy it. And I'm just, okay. I just think, well, they've been around a long time. If he touches on some stuff that I've already heard before, then fair enough, whatever. It actually brings a little bit of nostalgia for such a new album because of the, hankering back to days gone by with certain sounds and styles on the album. So I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, that's good.
Good deal. Yeah, and just folks probably saw it in the chat a minute ago, but Frank, take care of yourself. Ian is right there in Frank's neck of the woods right now. So do be mindful. It's not as powerful as it was a few days ago, but it's still doing some damage across a wide swath of territory.
Wow.
So we appreciate you tuning in, but obviously keep an eye on that weather. That is more important than hearing what I'm going to rank number 7 and such in Megadeth terms. What am I ranking number 6 in Megadeth terms? I got to go with United Abominations. And again, thanks to the chat for explaining the cover art earlier, because that was really bugging me. I could not figure out why in the world they had such a weird cover graphic. But okay, contests. If you're in a contest, you got to be prepared for something to win, and it may not be what you expect. Weird cover aside, it's a really good album, and it felt like Megadeth here is moving from strength to strength. Again, the 90s albums were rough ones to get through, but now you'd had the quote unquote solo album start to really move back in a positive direction, and then this felt like it was even a step up from that. So it's like, oh, okay, this is a band on the rise once again, which I would not have thought possible by the time Risk had come out. Good track list. It starts off really strong with Washington is next, Blackmail the Universe, very forceful opener. Does it need the little radio edit narration parts? You could probably cut those out. That's fine. Mustaine has always had a penchant for doing those things. That there's a lot of spoken sections on Megadeth songs all over their catalog. Sometimes they work better than others. They don't bother me here as much as in some other places. Darcy, like you said, Kick the Chair, excellent track. Some of the others too. It might tail off a little bit towards the end. Or wait, I'm reading some of the tracks. Am I on the right album?
No,
I'm not. Yeah, sorry. I forgot to switch over to the other track list. A lot of tabs to keep straight here. Let's back that up for a minute. Sorry, folks. Need to be over here on... Yeah, I'm still on The System Has Failed. Yes, this one does still open, but it's Sleepwalker and Washington is next. There we go.
Yeah.
Very good tracks there. Gears of War, not a bad track. If there's one on here that I don't like... I didn't like Tout Le Monde the first time around, and I definitely don't like it the second time around. This is, of all of the songs for him to go back and revisit, why that one? You might be right. Maybe it just had something to do with the royalties and all of that. I don't know, but neither incarnation of that song does much for me. But this is, a very good album, a forceful album, and by 2011 it felt like Megadeth is really pulling back in the right direction, and they would keep going from strength to strength. I'll get there maybe in another album or two, but so another solid album. I would agree with you all on that one. So it's time to venture into the top 6, which means Darcy, you are back up.
Well, you guys talked about a couple of these a long time ago. So, hopefully some of these viewers out there that are, longtime fans like myself can, appreciate where I'm coming from with some of these. And whatever, it's, we're all different. But my number 6 is Euthanasia, 1994. You could tell where they were going with Countdown, the involvement of, if you know metal or mostly hard rock, probably you would know the name Max Norman, producer. He was he was on helping with he did actually the mixing of Countdown, and then he did the production on this one. So it probably should come in as no surprise of how melodic, catchy type of album this is. And I probably would think overall this is the one album where Dave probably sat back as much as he possibly could and let Max Norman do his job. But and I always love this back cover, but I actually, I'm with Mike on this one. I really like this. I've never hated this front cover. I've always liked it. And this back cover shot is pretty cool, of a kind of a live shot of a Vic Rattlehead. But Reckoning Day, I love that kind of that the start is super heavy for that song. It really is a good opening track for this album. And there's not much I don't like on this album. Train of Consequences. I am a fan of Atula Mode, and I do like the original version better than the one on United Abominations. That's still, right. Yeah, you're right. Strange choice, whether he was as a contract thing or he wanted to do a duet with Christina Scavia, or if that's her name, pronouncing that right. But yeah, title track is good. I do agree. Black Curtains and Victory are Victory is kind of like a song like on 13, where he rehashes old song title, album titles, song titles, kind of pulling his own chain, basically. I'm a victory to even be alive and be here now. There's some great tracks on here. Blood Girl, super catchy. Elysian Fields, The Killing Road. I actually really enjoy this album. Still do. Is it a thrash album? No, it's not a thrash album. It's a metal album with some hard rock thrown in it, courtesy of Max Norman, whatever. But that's my number 6, Euthanasia, 1994.
All right. Very cool. Let's bring Mike back to the front. And Mike, what have you got at number 6?
Number 6, I've got the new album.
Okay.
I really enjoy this, and I was expecting to never enjoy another Megadeth album again, quite honestly. But this got me, virtually right away. You're right, Darcy, when you said that song "Junkie." It's actually it's cringeworthy, especially when
it is.
It does that intro where there's no real music accompanying it. He just sings the line, and you think he sings one line. You think he's going to sing the other line to match it, but he just says "you junkie," and it's like, oh no, that is hideous.
There's some bum doing a voice on there too, like some junkie doing a stupid voice. It just, you're right, cringeworthy. Sorry.
I love Dogs of Chernobyl. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
Really great song. I love most of them. It dips sort of just past the midpoint of the album. It dips a little bit around that junkie area, but I'm with you as well. Mission to Mars, and especially there's a riff towards the end. The last sort of music section of Mission to Mars.
It's heavy.
That riff. There's a really awesome riff. It's one of the best riffs I've heard in a long time. We'll Be Back, another great one to finish. Absolutely brilliant. The only thing I don't like, that I seem to be in a minority on again, is the artwork. I think it's hideous. I don't like this sort of real life Vic Rattlehead, just pay Ed Rector his money and get him back or whatever. I don't like the artwork, and I think, I mean, in certain lights, yeah, but if I'm looking at this now, and you can't even see that it says Megadeth, quite honestly, very clearly. The top half of the logo is, it's too dark for me, but doesn't take it away from being, as far as I'm concerned, one of the strongest albums of the year so far for me.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot of other folks have commented in the chat that they feel the art could have been better as well, and I would have to agree. So I have a question since you brought up Mission to Mars. The second half of the song, it's mostly the radio chatter between the astronauts and home base. I'm missing something there. There's nothing in the lyrics that that you can read along with it explains. They're on Mars. They find something. They make a funny rust in peace dad joke.
Yeah.
And then the astronauts are like freaking out about something and trying to go back to Earth, and they keep being told, no, you can't come back. What happens in the story right there that I'm not I feel like there's a couple of lines I just don't hear, and it's the important part where they see something that freaks them out. Are we told what it is or not?
No, I don't know really, but they threw a couple of kind of callbacks. There's even a Peace Sells one in there. We found a new way, and you're the first in line. And I thought that was cool.
There is some cheesy lyrics in the album, but I think Megadeth's always had cheesy lyrics. It's just that we've grown up a bit, and the sort of, you can see them for what they are, a bit cheesy now. Whereas when you're a kid, they don't jump out to you as much. I don't think. I really don't think he's doing anything radically different to what he's always done lyric-wise.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I even get the iced tea thing, because I have absolutely no problem with that at all, to be honest. But then I'm not like that over a bit of rap anyway. So that doesn't bother me. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic album, and a massive surprise because I was not expecting that.
Yep.
Well, I was surprised that you actually liked it. I just about shit myself, man. But you know what? Going back to that track, Mission to Mars, I just feel like that song has everything in it. There is a thrashy riff at the end, and I, we're never going to hear the original bass parts, but I think Steve DiGiorgio does a awesome job on that album. Yeah. I'm surprised too. I'm really happy that I like it this much.
Indeed, yeah. If anyone in the chat out there knows what the heck happens in the middle of that little story, it's not that important, but it's been bugging me because it's a little hard to hear what the astronauts are chattering about, with the radio static and the music going on. And it's just one like, what the heck did they see? Did they see a Martian? Did they see Megadeth's logo? And it's like some kind of, oh my God, humans have been here before.
You'll work it out, Alan. You'll work it out, I'm sure, because if you've managed to rejig the storyline for the Scanner album, you'll certainly work that out.
Damn right. If I can't, I'll make up something that is intriguing and or hilarious. So we'll get there one way or the other one day. It's still a pretty new album, so I still got time to figure it out. All right, so my turn for number 6. Let's see. For me, this one, this one might end up a little higher one day, but it doesn't quite have the mileage of some of the stuff that's higher than it. So number 6 is where I'm going to put Endgame. This album, very impressive right off the bat. It's got an opening instrumental, which is something that, let's face it, on most albums is kind of superfluous, but this one's actually very good. It right away sets the tone. It's, excellent guitar work. I like Chris Broderick a lot, in Jag Panzer. He'd been on almost all their albums since they came back in the 1990s. didn't surprise me that he eventually moved up to sort of more high profile position with a band like Megadeth. And yeah, it's just a really, really strong set of songs. 44 Minutes is good. This Day We Fight. 1320. It's just another song about racing. Dave has done a ton of those over time.
Yeah.
But it works very well here. The title track works well. Head Crusher is good. The Right to Go Insane, one of y'all mentioned it earlier. Yeah, that's a good closer to the album. It's really strong start to finish. Sometimes you're getting a pretty heavy dose of some of Mustaine's political stuff, which I can take or leave, but it's not over to the point of really being a problem here. I think on this album, if anything, he's dialed back a little bit on some of the spoken parts. It doesn't feel like there's as many of those sections where people are just talking or doing intros. So that again, the focus is on the songs. For the most part, are quite ripping on this album. I suspect, if I have to re-rank these albums at some point in the future, I won't be surprised if Endgame actually ends up at least a spot higher, number 5. But at this point in time, I'm going to put it at number 6. And at this point, it really did feel like Megadeth was on a surge. You had 3 straight albums here between 2004, 2007, 2009, where the band was really firing on all cylinders again.
Yeah.
Which again, it also makes those next 2 albums feel a bit weirder. That you've went through this kind of slump through a lot of the 90s. You built way back up to a really good album here with Endgame, and then you change direction with 13, and then you do Super Collider, and you have old men stomping model rockets at a football field, and they kiss at the end. Megadeth's the wacky catalog in some ways.
Yeah.
But so that's my number 6 will be Endgame, which means we're now into the top 5. So we'll keep urging right along.
I'm definitely with you on Endgame. I think it's it was a momentum builder. You had System, then you had United, Abominations, then Let's Make a Statement. If I remember correctly, Head Crusher was the first single for that album, which is one of the heavier tracks on it. And I just think it was just, we're back. Here we are. We are going to, like I said, fill this album full of solos and really scorching riffs, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. So where are we at? Number 5?
Yeah, we're number 5. Yeah, just to follow up on that, Darcy, it's very different from what we saw in the Anthrax discography when we did that on the previous episode with Philip from Chromium Dioxide. With Anthrax's catalog, you have all those old classics, and then you go through a couple of decades with, all those albums ranked very low. And it's only the past couple of albums, so it's like a U-shaped curve. Yeah. Good stuff bottoms out, comes back up. And with Megadeth, it's like it goes down, and then it's coming back up to Endgame, and then it starts to go back down again. So it's a different trajectory. It's not that Dave only found his blues again in the past couple of years. He finds it and loses it over time. Yeah. But yes, without further ado, let's switch.
Top 5.
Darcy over here should begin our top 5 with.
Okay,
they're getting serious now.
Yeah, I just got to warn everybody. There's no bad album from here on in. There's probably rarely even a bad song. These are all, high up on my list. I'm not going to say they can change position because that probably wouldn't happen. But my number 5 is their debut, "Killing Is My Business." This is my original Combat CD. Let me pull out the cover because. When we talk about cheese and covers, you know what? I love this cover. I just don't care. I do appreciate that they changed their logo after. This is kind of like a Judas Priest, Sad Wings of Destiny type of font. I do like their current logo, but I do have this one on vinyl that, what did they call it? The Vinyl Kill or the Final Kill with that updated artwork, which I actually still like this better. They did this on a shoestring budget because they pretty much snorted, drank whatever money they had, fired their producer. And I don't even mind the weak production on this album. The only thing that bothers me about this album is the cover of These Boots. I could do without it. I don't care about it. But my absolute favorite song on Killing Is My Business is track 6, called Chosen Ones. Sorry, track 7. Looking Down the Cross has always been my favorite track on this album. I love that piano intro, last rites right into the song. Love to Death, the title track, Killing Is My Business, Skull Beneath the Skin, which is, I don't know if that's directly about the, how Vic Rattlehead came to be, and then you got Rattlehead. But yeah, I could definitely do without These Boots, but I've always loved this album. Since I heard it, obviously I heard this one after Peace Sells, because I kind of had to backtrack for this one, but glad to know it now. That's my number 5, Killing Is My Business.
All right. So yeah, we're definitely getting into some of the big classics here. Oh, I think we just lost Mike for a minute. I think his mic was starting to act up just a little bit again. So
yeah, that noise was happening again.
All right. He is back. And Mike, are you ready for your number 5?
Number 5. I bet people think I've forgotten this album, and because it was shown that long ago by everybody else. But I absolutely love 13. This was one of the ones that I heard when it was brand new. And honestly, just the start, the sort of first 4 songs or something really strong for me. What is it? Sudden Death, Public Enemy number 1, and then the strongest of them, We the People. I absolutely love that song. What else is on it after that?
Black Swan, you like?
Black Swan is tremendous. I know there's that Drugs, God and Money. That is quite a low point. But there's I can't say fuck all font wise. It's just horrific. But I've never not liked this album. I think it's brilliant, and to me, this album's a chorus album. There's great choruses here, whereas see how you guys have been saying about Endgame and like, oh, there's all this great solo and that. I don't even notice shit like that. I honestly wouldn't know if one guitar player was switched for another halfway through an album. It's just not something that resonates with me at all. I'm all about songs, not instruments. I want the chorus, and this delivers choruses for me. I think it's an easy listen. Or what's that song? Whose Life Is It Anyway? Something like that.
Track. That is
absolutely awesome. It's just I don't know. I've never understood the well, not so much hate. I don't know if people actually hate the album, but they don't rate it very highly, as you lot didn't. And I was smiling to myself when you were saying about, a nosedive in there. And I'm thinking, well, I'm saying nothing because I know where it's coming with mine. And it was never in any doubt either that it would be this high up for me. I just think it's fantastic.
No, that's cool. That's it's interesting. You're right. It's not one a ton of people rank very high, but that's cool that you dig it that much. All right, I've got to shift over here to give my number 5. Now, this one I probably have ranked a step or two too high right now. I have a feeling, again, if we do this again in 2 years, this one maybe moves down a couple of notches. But for my choice, I have the new album here. Like Mike, really surprised with this one when it was, first announced it was coming out. I wasn't really that interested in checking it out. I forget if it was Marty or someone else on the streams that asked, like, yeah, you're going to check this out. So I was like, I don't know. I don't really care. Maybe one way or the other. But it was one of those things I ended up hearing on accident, just with YouTube on in the background. And it came on. And it's just like, oh, I should quit poo-pooing on it and actually listen to the damn thing. And it turns out that it's a very, very good album. Kiko sounded really good on Dystopia. He sounds even stronger here. The new drummer, I forget his name. I know he was in Soilwork previously.
Dirk Verburen.
Yes, thank you, Darcy. The drumming is really strong on this album too. It gives the songs a lot of energy. They feel very tight. I did some different things I like here too. This one lyrically feels like it's covering a wider range of stuff. This isn't just an album that is 50 or 60% of Dave whining about the same old things over and over. Which again, whether I agree with him or not, isn't my point. It's just that I'm kind of tired of hearing him tread the same water. And this time it's a lot more varied. You've got some, historical songs. You've got, of course, a couple of war songs. Dave's always going to have those. But he's jumping around on the topics more. And if anything, the politics are dialed back quite a bit. And I remember there was an interview with him when they started working on this album, which was around 2018, I think. Again, time from the past few years is a little goofy for everyone, but there was an interview in that 2018, 2019 timeframe when they just had, like a couple of, snippets, that had gotten teased, I guess, that, Megadeth, reveals 30 seconds of new song in the works. Yeah, and in the interview, Mustaine specifically said, I'm very consciously dialing the politics down on this album because everyone in this country is losing their fucking mind over politics lately, and it's really stupid that we're just ready to kill each other over all this shit. I don't really want to feed into that. I'm just going to talk about some other stuff. It's like everybody needs to just get a fucking grip. And it was interesting. It caught me because Mustaine's usually known for being more controversial, and it's like, that's actually a pretty mature perspective for somebody to take. Why the hell are we just constantly arguing tooth and nail? I think one of the quotes he used was like, when I was a kid and stuff, nobody even talked about who they voted for. You went, you voted, it was not a topic for discussion. And Mustaine was like, now everybody walks around screaming at the top of their lungs like it's some kind of badge of honor. I don't get it. So it was kind of cool to see him recognize that and think about it, process it, and result in a change of direction a little bit. And I think it makes the album a little more interesting just because he's not talking about the same things here. The songs are varied. They're very, very good in terms of music. Mike, I do agree with you though. When you get into the middle of the album, it loses some of its luster. The first several tracks are really good. Dogs of Chernobyl, that's one of my favorites as well. But starting with that next track, Sacrifice, it doesn't really seem to fit in anywhere. It really feels like a song that somehow never got finished. Junkie, and not going to be a standout. Psychopathy, it feels like he's trying to do another Dawn Patrol kind of thing, but it does not resonate the way that one did.
Yeah.
So you got to get to more like Soldier On and stuff. One that nobody mentioned that I adore on this album, and adore, yes, I know that was a weird word to choose, but we're doing this live, I can't take it back, so we'll go with it. I adore the song Celebutante. That I really wish he had subtitled it "Fuck the Kardashians," but the guys in Slayer might have sued or something. That to me is like perfect. That's the kind of thing where Mustaine can let that cynical, snarky vibe just out, and it's aimed at the perfect thing. All of these brain dead morons who spend all day taking pictures of themselves in a bathroom mirror and trying to post it to a million drooling morons on Instagram, and he just eviscerates them lyrically in this song. And I fuck with it, and it's a good song too. The song just
I do like that song. I forgot to mention that because, believe it or not, and sorry to interrupt you, but
oh no, go ahead.
That song is loosely based on Yngwie Malmsteen. It was inspired. It actually has a lot to do with Dave meeting Yngwie Malmsteen, and you know how pompous that guy is. Whether he's a great guitar player, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But true story. That's part of that inspiration is the meeting of Malmsteen.
I did not know that, and now it's even funnier.
Now it makes sense, eh?
it, it made perfect. And that's the funny thing. It didn't have to have Ingwe involved at all. It just with the whole TikTok culture of all these Kardashian wannabe idiots. I mean, celebrity. You couldn't come up with a better term to describe those people if you tried. If you sat down with a thesaurus, you would not find a better word to describe these vapid, airhead, bimbo wannabe somebody important and do nothing with their lives.
Exactly.
They contribute less than zero to the human experience, and yet they think they're the best shit on the planet. And you have 10 million goddamn followers who have nothing better to do than stare at their pictures, and you think that somehow they were actually meaningful in some way.
Well, there's a line in that song that goes, I never met a mirror that I didn't like, right?
Yeah.
So that sums that up.
Yeah, just a fantastic song. Mission to Mars, we're going to figure that one out. We're going to come back to that one. If one way or the other, I will figure out what happens in that story. And yeah, of course, it closes out. We'll Be Back, the video single from it, which is that's about as thrashy as you're going to hear Megadeth get these days. It's aggressive. The guitar work is just top notch. Not much else you could ask for out of a song than that. So, while not a perfect album, it's a very strong album. It feels like arguably, the heaviest album they've made in a long time in terms of, really making sure every song is a bona fide metal song. Maybe some of them, there are some, that lean a little bit towards the catchier side, like Killing Time and Soldier On, but they're still bona fide metal songs. They're not alt rock 90s alternative wannabe songs like some of the stuff they were doing in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
So will this album stay ranked this high for me? Probably not. This very much has a feel of it's the pull of the recent, it's the new album, it's on your mind, you've played it a ton. So it's probably getting a little boost from that. I will be perfectly honest. I have a feeling at some point this one and if nothing else, Endgame and this one probably will switch places in the long term. But for now, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead makes it to number 5.
No, and that's why I was really super comfortable with putting it at number 9 for myself. I just felt like I didn't have enough time with it yet, and
that is
like you said, you both said good album. I think we all can agree that we're all pretty surprised of how good it was, because honestly, you know what? I talk to Mike every day, and I thought there's no way in hell he is ever going to listen to a Megadeth album again. And here we go. He's picking a few up, but don't worry, he will sell them in 2 weeks from now. So don't worry. I'm just fucking with you. But where are we at? Number 4?
We're at number 4. It is crunch time here. So
all right,
Darcy, top 4. And interestingly, before you Darcy, before you go in, there are 3 albums that none of us have named yet. It's going to be interesting to see how we place some of these albums. It would have been 4, but you went and messed up and put, I already said Killing's my business, Darcy. So,
yeah. Well, and like I said, as much as I love Killing Is My Business, I really do. I think it could have been better, but we know all that whole story. But it's a good album. And here's an album that you guys shit on about an hour ago. Here's my number 4, and that is Countdown to Extinction. I really, really enjoy this album. I'll flat out say it. Reading some of your comments of people watching, I'm not the only one that's in this boat with as far as this album goes. But and I had mentioned that this is the first one where Max Norman got involved too, and you know what? The one thing I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit, but Andy Sneap was involved in 2 of these albums, and one of them is Endgame and United Abomination. So just throw that out there, because that everybody in that time period was Sneaped at some point, right? So anyways, Endgame, you can sure tell that Andy was, on that one. But back to this one. Always love this. Always love the back cover better. I wish this was the front cover. But I get it for the time and what they were trying to prove. You can say, geez, is this the same band that made Rust in Peace? Well, it is. And you got to remember, this is 1992. What's that? 1 year after Metallica's Black Album. Did that come out in 91?
Yep.
So, Dave was trying to, and I read, I don't remember where exactly I read this, but he was really disappointed that this album, he was happy it was a big success, but it was nowhere near where the level Metallica was accomplishing at the time. And, he believes this was a better album. And, I'm not going to argue that point right now, because I do love both of those albums, but I've always loved this song. It's got a couple of, couple weaker tracks near the end. Ashes in Your Mouth isn't great, but I've always loved Symphony of Destruction. I have no problem with that song. Architect of Aggression, love that song. Sweating Bullets, yeah. Hello Me, It's Me Again, or whatever. I could do without that part, but it's a good track. You had mentioned before Race Car or thrill songs like High Speed Dirt, which ends with a parachute not opening, if I remember correctly, kind of a thump on the ground. And what's that other? Yeah, Psychotron, maybe a little cringeworthy for sure. But yeah, I've always loved this album. So hopefully there's a few people out there in the audience that can appreciate that. But yeah, pick this one up on release day in 1992. That is my number 4.
Okay. And that's very cool that you get it ranked a lot higher, because I think a lot of people do really love that album. And frankly, I would have been surprised if none of us did have it appear near the top of the list. So yeah, very cool to see that you got a different take on it than Mike and I do. All right, Mike, that means it's time to reveal your number 4 choice.
Well, I think with these last 4, they're all great. So the only way you can distinguish them is to pull them apart. So when I'm sort of saying negative things about them, you've got to appreciate that they're number 4 in my list. So I do love them all. But my number 4 is Peace Sells, and the reason being that I've touched on previously. There's too much instrumentation on this album. There's long periods where there's no vocals on this album, and that is not something that floats my boat. And I know the musicianship's great and all the rest of it, but and there's some fantastic riffs and time changes and all that stuff, but that is very, very much secondary to backing up some actual vocals for me. And that's one of the things that pulls it down. I've just listened to my number 4 and number 3 just before doing the stream, just to make sure, because I'm sort of looking at it thinking, but hang on, it's Peace Sells. Are you sure it's number 4? Mm-hmm. And when I listened to it, I thought it absolutely is for me. It is the weakest of this top 4. I absolutely love My Last Words. I've never been big on Wake Up Dead. And I've never particularly been that fond of the title track either. As a child, the excitement of the song wowed me. More to do with the flashing imagery on the video at the end. When it's got all the different signs and stuff going, and it's sort of building up to the end of the song and stuff like that. Just far too many long periods of no vocals is what puts it at number 4. But when it's good, it's very good, Yeah.
No, I think it is a fair point about the album. You're right. There are long sections of them just going off on the instrumental parts. That is very true. All right, so now I've got to do number 4. Um, and these next two, this was a pair I flip-flopped a couple of times, and I've made my choice, and I want to stick with it. But on a different night, these two probably end up in the other order. For tonight, at number 4, I'm going with So Far, So Good, So What? So it's number 4. I like this album, and I think I like it more than a lot of folks do. It's widely criticized as, sort of the weakest of their 80s albums by a lot of folks. And it's a time when, the band was having a lot of substance abuse issues. And the album has a weird track list. It starts with this very long instrumental song. Then you get Set the World Afire. But then you get the Sex Pistols cover, which feels way too early in the album. And then, at track 4, you've got Mary Jane, which is kind of, a little bit of a slower track. And then you're already halfway through the album. It's like, wait, has there really only been one kind of ripping song on here so far? What the hell's going on? Side 2 is much more consistent. I figured out long ago my trick for liking this album is to play the sides in reverse order, to start on side 2, because then you start off with, the faster 502, you get In My Darkest Hour, one of, the better tracks for sure, Liar, you get Hook and Mouth is really great. So there you're rolling with 4 really good songs. Then that instrumental feels like it's in the right place, where it's stuck in the middle of the album, and then the Anarchy cover comes right before the end, and that feels like a better place. Mary Jane, I'm not going to say it's a great choice for closing an album, but it feels like it would fit better in the track listing there. But that said, that's not the track order of the album. There's lots of albums that might be better if we moved a few things around here and there. I've got to rank the album the way it's actually pressed. And the way it's pressed, side A just really does leave you scratching your head as to why it got put together that way. So I do like the album overall. I've owned it, forever. I've got, again, like you said, Mike, I'm sitting here kind of, nitpicking at things, but at the end of the day, I've still got it ranked number 4. And I think I could very easily have it ranked to number 3. It wouldn't take much at all for me to bump it up a slot. But on this particular evening, we're going to put it at number 4 for So Far, So Good, So What? An album that nobody else has mentioned yet. So we're going to hear some more about it here in a few minutes, I think. Which means it is time for the top 3. And that means Darcy is back in the limelight. All right, Darcy.
All right.
3 left.
You had I don't know if you mentioned it, but you said there's really no bad album, or you love these albums. I absolutely love these albums. We had talked a little bit before we came on air that I was right around, or no, actually we talked on the stream right around 86 when Peace Cells had been out a little while. So when the follow-up came out, that was my first official new Megadeth release, technically, and I absolutely love this album. This was your number 4. This is my number 3. And I love when they were doing this, the title, like, So Far, So Good, ... So What, or The Sick, The Dying, Peace Cells. I would have loved if they would have continued that type of thing, but whatever. Besides, and I always say, you pick on that cover track, it is the weakest point on this album for me, because I absolutely love Into the Lungs of Hell. Sets up Set the World on Fire so nicely. I love it. I love some people complain a bit about the production or lack of, but I think the production's awesome. The drum sound isn't the best, but I just love the guitar tone. Mary Jane, not a bad song. 502, I've always loved. Pull Over Shithead, This Is the Cops. I've always loved that. Liar. In My Darkest Hour, with it I do like the song, but it's not the highlight on this album for me. But Liar, I always love that. I always tried to sing along with, start, trouble, spread, pain, piss and venom in my veins, talk nasty, breathe fire. I would just go over and over, and I had to learn every bit of it. And hook and mouth, I don't mind that as a closer, especially is how it ends, where it just like mouth and it just fades right out. I don't mind that as a closer. Kind of a short album. I wish there was maybe one more track in there. I do agree with you of where Anarchy in the UK is positioned on the album. It probably could be maybe third from last on this album, but love this album top to bottom. Even with the the crazy lineup, substance abuse and all that. That's my number 3. So far, so good. So what?
Nice choice. And following up your observation about the punctuation in the title, that was one of the little touches on the new album that was nice.
I like
you had all the punctuation back in the title. It's a subtle little thing, but it's those kind of touches that really make the album stand out. Nice choice. And that could easily be my number 3 on a different night,
especially for us old guys. We pick up on that shit, don't we?
The periods and the commas and the exclamation points are important to us.
They are.
Now that I say it out loud, not sure that maybe we need to reevaluate our priorities a little bit. While I contemplate a couple of life choices, Mike, what have you got at number 3?
I have gone number 3 for me is Killing Is My Business. Now, when I was a kid and I got this album, or I borrowed this album from someone or something like that, my stereo was so poor at the time, and it didn't sound great back then. This is that Final Kill version of it. Because it sounded atrocious, I couldn't enjoy it. And back in when I heard that in 1987, there was so much other stuff to get into, so I cast it aside, and I never went back to it. I purposely ignored it until they brought something out that I thought would be an improvement, and I bought this Final Kill version, which, to be quite honest, is littered with a load of pointless shit beyond the album. But the sound is absolutely fantastic on it. So I've been able to dig into this album in the last 3-4 years since it came out, and properly listen to it. So it's still quite fresh for me, surprisingly enough, this album. And I just love, it's like, the piano intro is just, I absolutely love it. I think it's superb. And I'm as soon as the album kicks off properly with, the first song, I'm just rooting for him, even though I know the story and all the rest of it. And yes, he went on to have a successful career and all the rest of it. It takes me back to, I imagine myself hearing this when it came out, and I'm just like rooting for the guy. He's been kicked out of the band he loves. Now he's coming back spitting fire and feathers, and he wants to, show them, I'll show those guys type of attitude. And I love the energy and the aggression in it. It's just amazing to me. And vocally is different to every other Megadeth album. It's much less Mustaine than it is for everything else. I believe he went on to have some sort of vocal coaching after this album, and I think that was because he wasn't really sure how to breathe and get the best out of it. He was probably exhausted on these early live performances because of lack of understanding of how to sing and play guitar at the same time. But I wish he had retained this voice and just learned how to breathe and perform, because I think the voice on here is fantastic. But it's the aggression and the youthful energy that really carries it for me. I absolutely love it.
Very cool. I think, yeah, it's a very popular choice for, I think a lot of folks probably have it ranked even higher than that. It's a longtime fan favorite for a ton of folks. All right. And, I think for number 3, I'm just going to follow suit. This one, it surprises me it came out quite this high. I would have figured it would be a place or two lower. But yeah, I'll put Killing Is My Business at number 3 as well. Usually, if you ask me about early Megadeth, this is the one I rank as my least favorite of the 4. So it kind of feels like So Far So Good should have been higher than this. But again, the way the albums are put together, this one probably is a little better. Something I've come to realize about this album, this is one of those, if I don't play it for a while, I start forgetting how good it is. And then I go back and play, it's like, oh yeah, that's actually better than I tend to give it credit for. I don't really know why that is. The Nancy Sinatra cover does not help. It really doesn't help because I was very familiar, sadly, with the Nancy Sinatra song before hearing Megadeth try to do it. And I fucking despise the Nancy Sinatra version. And then to hear Megadeth pick that, of all godforsaken things, to put on their album, there are some mysteries in life that make no sense, and this is one of them. I've seen some people try to defend it as being one of those, like, oh, well, it's, supposed to be so absurd that, yes, he's picking this horrible song and making you listen to it, and what a punk thing for him to do. Like, no, don't apologize for bad decisions. That's just a poor choice for a cover song. But yeah, if you get beyond that, the album's, like you said, Mike, it's got this very kind of audacious opening part that really makes it stand out. It gets your attention right away. Killing Is My Business is a great track. Skull Beneath the Skin has never been my favorite Megadeth tune. I know a lot of folks love it, but for whatever reason, that one is I don't rank that song as high as others do. But you still have Rattlehead, you still have Chosen Ones, you still have Looking Down the Cross, and it's really that second side that sometimes I think I just kind of forget, how solid all those tracks are. Production's an issue. It is not the best sounding album in its original form. And the thing that always nags me about it is it does feel like an album that wasn't quite ready to go out the door. To me, it always feels like it was a little bit rushed. The songs feel a little bit loose. They're held together because you've got, an extremely solid lineup, a very talented group of guys, so they make it work. But they always feel like these songs needed a little more tweaking here and there just to tighten them up a tad. That there are some things here and there that just don't quite feel like they were fully fleshed out in their minds. The album that I often kind of compare it to is Merciful Fate's Melissa, because Melissa's got some of those same symptoms going on. Great lineup, some really good songs, but there are times on Melissa, like with Satan's Fall, that's like, this song was not ready to go on an album just yet. They could have done something good with it, but it got rushed out the door. And I feel like maybe Killing Is My Business and Dave's zeal to start catching up to Metallica, and then the label's obvious interest in making money as quickly as they could. Maybe this album needed to stew just a little bit longer. But hell, they still made it a very good album, even as is. So, again, I'm nitpicking on something that I've got ranked 3rd out of 16 albums. So it can't be that bad. All right, guys. We're about ready to bring this one home. So, Darcy.
Up to,
We are up to, there's only 2 left. So,
okay.
And, there's one album none of the 3 of us have mentioned yet. So let's see where.
There's a couple, yeah. Well, yeah, actually, there's one, yeah.
There's one, yeah. There's only one that nobody has mentioned.
And I'm going to show it right now because that is my number 2.
Okay.
Which there is nothing wrong with this album. It absolutely is it's next level stuff. It is. But there's one album that's left that I just like a little bit more. But this is. To come back with an album like this, there is just, even Dawn Patrol is not that bad. Some people don't like that, but other than that, there's no weakness on this. This is just a a thrasher piece, top to bottom. We all know that. This album is always held in high regard by a lot of people, and you know, there is a handful of people that don't really see it that way. But I've always loved this album. Bought it brand new, 1990. Just yeah, Take No Prisoners. Love that track. I love some of the deeper tracks too. Also, not that Tornado of Souls is a deeper track, and I know Mike, you're not a big guitar solo guy, but there is one of the all-time best Megadeth guitar solos on Tornado of Souls that has ever existed. And I love how it closes off with Rust in Peace, Polaris. Always loved Holy Wars. I mean, it's a song that's embedded in my brain. I don't really need to hear it, but you know, I still love to hear Dave when he's up there, up on my soapbox, and you know, he's just spitting out the lyrics, and you know, Five Magics, you know, Bring Me Alchemy, you know, you all know this, you guys know this top to bottom, so I don't really need to speak a whole lot more about it, other than it easily could be a #1 album, but it's my #2, Rust in Peace from 1990.
All right. So, Mike, 2 left.
When I talk about these albums, the way I'm going to, everyone's going to be scratching their head as to why they're in the position they're in. But
no, I know.
So #2, I'll join Darcy with Rust in Peace.
All right.
Interesting. Absolutely fantastic. Really sort of, I think it was the perfect production for them during the career. I'll talk about production on the next album, but this made them seem energetic, and of course the songs are energetic, and the fantastic lot of technical stuff. I remember buying the tablature book when this album came out, and I sat learning all the riffs and stuff. Never been into playing solos, but I can play a lot of the rhythm to this album, so I know how intricate it can get, you know. And it's just fantastic. And I remember seeing the video on Headbangers Ball when Holy Wars came out, and that riff where it climbs up, you know, it's just I'd never heard that type of playing before. And Mustaine, by this point, before this album came out, Dave Mustaine was already you know, highly regarded guitar player, and everyone knew the skills that he has. But and somebody told me at the time, and I don't know if it's true or not, somebody else will maybe know, but somebody said to me, because And Justice for All was so technical, he deliberately set out to make a technical album just to sort of stick 2 fingers up at Metallica. And I can imagine that would be, you know, that's plausible to me. Don't know whether it's true, but it's certainly plausible. But everything about it, from the artwork, strong lineup. I even think, even though it doesn't really matter to the music, I touched on it with Euthanasia, but I think they looked better here as, you know, performers and stuff. I don't want to look at fucking Euthanasia where it looked like someone off Blackadder. You know, everything about it is just fantastic. The only thing that puts it at #2 is that, well, I don't know. Well, because it's not #1, and I'll just I'll wait till my #1, you know. But it's still fantastic. Yeah, I would say it's like a 9.7 out of 10.
You know, Mike, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but you know, the production on there is Mike Klink. And yeah, you know what famous album Mike Klink produced, right? Appetite for Destruction.
Appetite, yeah. Which is fantastic production as well.
100%. I always thought that was, that was what, 3 years after Appetite. I thought that was always, and I think Max Norman was involved too. But yeah, Mike Klink produced that.
All right, so we're just going to make it a clean sweep because I'm also putting Rust in Peace at number 2. And over time, I go back and forth. My top 2 tend to flip-flop over the years. Currently, I have them ranked the way I'm showing tonight. There have been periods of time where I have put Rust in Peace at the top of the heap. I agree with everything y'all have said and what folks have been saying in the comments too. It is, it's a guitar player's wet dream of an album. The riffing and the solos, everything is tight. It's the first time, in some ways it feels like Megadeth really realizes their potential. The band had gotten a bit cleaned up by this point. They got over some of the substance issues that had plagued them in the 80s, and yes, it's just ferocious, almost start to finish. I could easily put this album at number 1 and it wouldn't bother me a lick. I have a reason for putting the other album first, and I'll explain that when we get to that one. But yeah, everything about this, the videos were fun, the art, concepts were fun, even on the singles and stuff, the Vic with the alien and the, Area 51 stuff and all, everything clicked perfectly with this album. Yes, Tornado of Souls, excellent track. Take No Prisoners, very fun. Even those tracks like that, that are a little more blunt, they're still so tight and intricate and put together so well. It's it's all good. Five Magics, like you said, Darcy. Yeah, every song, is just top-notch stuff. It's, I think, even to this day, not just for Megadeth, for thrash metal in general, I think it's one of those high water marks that everybody, it's one of the measuring sticks. When something comes out, if someone's trying to be technical, it's like, yeah, but are they Rust in Peace technical? If they're trying to be, tight, if they're trying to do over-the-top shred solos, it's like, yeah, but is it Friedman and Mustaine Rust in Peace good? And in a way, I think it maybe haunts the band in their own catalog. A ton of the reviews I've read over the past couple of weeks for the albums throughout their career, one of the big things, even when people are saying positive things about it, I'm like, well, it's no Rust in Peace, but I do like this one. And when people are shitting on their albums, it's always like, God damn, this band, this is the same band that did Rust in Peace, and now they're making this turd of an album. This is always the album everyone measures everything the band does by. So for better or worse, they really did achieve something monumental here. It's a milestone. And none of us have it ranked number 1.
No.
Yeah.
So the time has come. If people are paying attention, they'll know what everybody is going to rank next. But let's make it official. So, Darcy.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to show this. So I got to see Megadeth for the very first time in 1990. I still have the original ticket stub.
Oh, nice.
$20. Testament open. They were on the Souls of Black, album cycle at the time. And that is one of 2 shows that basically, besides me getting to see Metallica on the Puppets tour, those 2 shows cemented my love of thrash as being, basically my top genre of metal for sure. And but you do know my number 1 if you've been following along, paying attention. This one has never flipped. It has never flopped. It has always been number 1 and probably always will be. Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? My introduction to Megadeth. I know Mike and I have talked about the lyrics. I think you told me one time if you added up all the words, it was less than whatever. But, if you can make a song about I creep into my own house at 4 a.m, blah, 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 you know, and then just into that heavy part and that video where they're everybody's climbing up that cage that they're in. I was just like, this is next level stuff. I love it. Lyrically, I couldn't get enough of these lyrics besides, and you know what, to be honest with you, at the time, I probably didn't even know I Ain't Superstitious was a cover song. I'm not going to pretend I was that bright back in 1986. You only learn those type of things later, but just the lyrics were just, you know, The Conjuring, Devil's Island, Good Morning, the intro to Black Friday, absolutely awesome. You know, what was that? Yeah. You know, Pounding, Surroundings, Smashing Through Your Head. Like, I was just like, what is this? This is too cool. Bad Omen. And then wrapping up my single favorite closing track of any metal, thrash, anything album, My Last Words. When he gets to that last part and he just yells out, die, and then it just fades away. I was just like, yep, this is for me, and never looked back. My number one, Peace Sells, but who's buying?
An excellent choice. Absolutely. All right, Mike, let's make your number one official.
Well, I've not really spoke about the rest of the albums too in depth because I thought I wouldn't waste up too much time because I would talk about my number one more than I talked about the others. You know, I hope that's okay.
Absolutely, go for it.
But so obviously my number one is So Far So Good. It was the first new album after I had already discovered them and stuff. And for me, right, it's like, this is almost like your child. Your child might not be perfect. It's going to have problems. It's going to fall short in certain ways. This falls short in a few ways, and I'm going to mention them ways. There's no point in just saying them without it. But it's like, yeah, okay, but it's my child. I still love it. It doesn't matter. And first off, as far as Jeff Young goes, you know, I'm not much of a guitar. I'm not interested in guitar, even though I can play a bit. I'm not interested in it. The drums, for me, is what I would imagine people who wouldn't rank this album as high as me. The drums sound really like a lumbering lummox. They pull the album's energy right down. It sucks all the energy out of this album. This is a big, fat, lumbering album, I think, that never feels light. It's the complete opposite of what Rust in Peace feels like. That feels, you know, like it could go anywhere. This feels like even the slightest change or increase in speed is going to be an effort. That's how it sounds to me. I think Chuck Beeler, who was the drum tech who got the job, probably out of convenience. I think he was, in his whole time in the band, I think he was a bag of nerves. And I think that shows in his performance. He wanted to get the job done. He didn't want to make any mistakes. But he displays no flair, no confidence or anything in the drumming style on this album. Considering I've been sort of running down instrumentation, long bouts of instrumentation without any vocals, I absolutely love Into the Lungs of Hell. I think I love it so much because I know what I'm in for when it finishes, and it gets me excited. You know, it gets me pumped. But I've always thought that was a great instrumental. And then Set the World Afire, which incidentally was the first song he ever wrote on the bus home from getting kicked out of Metallica. And then waits till the third album to use it. But yeah, that was the first song he ever wrote. I even love that little bit of radio that like, I don't want to set the world, whatever that is. Again, it gets me pumped. And then you've got that great riffs. It's just all tension building. I love the guitar tone on the album, and it's a great tone for the palm muted riffs that they use on it. Anarchy in the UK is an absolute abortion of a cover. He doesn't even sing the right lyrics for the start. It's a shit cover. Mary Jane is another sort of lumbering along type of song for the most part of it, and then it sort of improves a bit as it goes on. In a it reminds me of the heavier bits of Fade to Black later on, 502 always been a high point for me. In My Darkest Hour, I kind of see that very similar to Mary Jane. I kind of pair those two up. Liar has always been one of the high points for me as well. I love the ferocity and the even if it's a bit juvenile lyrically. Like Darcy said, I always tried to keep up with, rattling that off myself. And Hook in Mouth is just a fantastic closer. And for all its failures and everything, no other album transports me back to being 15 like this does. And for that, I would always rate it so high. It's like having my own teleport, this album. Mm-hmm. And I've actually ranked the technically better album at number 2, but it's what this is sort of in here type of thing why I've put this as number 1.
Awesome.
So I wouldn't argue with anybody sort of shitting on it. I couldn't defend it as well as I could defend Rust in Peace. It's definitely an emotional attachment for me, that album.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. No, and it's cool to, again, it's an album that some folks, have a habit of putting down. So, it's very cool to hear you go to bat and, stand up for that one and put it right there at the top of the heap. All right. So I've only got one left as well. And Darcy and I are on the same page. My number 1 is Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? This is an album, it does have its flaws here and there. It yet again suffers from a horrible cover song. That's not at all what I want to hear Megadeth trying to cover. This song, at least, I don't mind other people performing this song. It's not as bad a song as the Nancy Sinatra one. That's just a horrible song no matter who does it. But it had no business being covered by Megadeth. But other than that, everything about this album, I love to death. This was one of the albums for me as a teenager. This was one of the angry albums when you need to just do the angry teenage raging thing a little bit. This was one of the go-tos because the band just sounds so pissed off, angry. You're listening to it thinking, are these guys like fucking murderers or something? It really does sound like they're just going to go out and start beating people to a pulp or something. And that's why at the end of the day I actually rank this one higher than Rust in Peace. Like you said, Mike, it's easier to defend Rust in Peace as it's a technical masterpiece and all that. This one's a fantastic album. It's not as technically tight as Rust in Peace. But this is Megadeth when they're still really angry. And that's usually when Megadeth, feels the best to me. When Mustaine's trying to write, these, alt rock radio songs in the 90s, I have no interest in that. When Mustaine's trying to do a better job singing on stuff like on Countdown to Extinction, I have no interest in that. When Mustaine is like, going through DTs because he hasn't had a fix in a while and, the guys are stealing each other's shit and hawking it to pay for their drug habit, that's when they make their most ferocious music. Philip, Chromium Doxide, explained it best in one of his videos when he was talking about the Megadeth catalog. And I loved the way he set it up. It was funny and hilarious, but it was very on point. Rust in Peace is the album that all, like, the self-respecting serious guitar folks listen to. They treat it like, oh, let's go out, for like a night at the symposium and listen to Dr. Friedman construct the perfect riff structure. And this album is the one where they stab you in the kidney and take your fucking wallet so they can go get a couple of snorts of crack before they have to go back into the studio and do another cut. And that's what makes this fucking brilliant. Megadeth strung out and angry and pissed off about everything, and yet they still managed to make this fantastic album at the same time. All the tracks, some of them are weird, but someone in the chat mentioned earlier, Wake Up Dead, it's a very strange opening number because it's not an instrumental, but like you said, Mike, it's mostly an instrumental, but it's not, but it works really good. The Conjuring's a cool song. Peace Cells has become, a big, it's an anthem in thrash metal. You get to the middle of the album and they just go fucking nuts with, Devil's Island, and then rolling right into Good Morning and Black Friday. Black Friday might be their, it's not as technical as anything on Rust in Peace, and it might be better than anything on Rust in Peace because of it. And then, yes, Darcy, you're right. Closing out with, My Last Words, that's a song that will still sometimes come on. It will still just drop my jaw. Just like, that song is so fucking good wrapping this album up. It's still hard to just think, damn, yeah. Even here, very last track, you get past the horrible cover song, and it's worth the wait. Because, yes, that song is just incredible, too. So, yeah. There are times where I guess I'm more in the symposium mindset, and I'll put Rust in Peace higher. But these days, in recent years, if I'm going to pick the best Megadeth, it's the angry, strung out Megadeth that we hear on Peace Cells, but Who's Buying? So that will be my number one, and that means we have reached the end of this. To everybody in the chat, thank you for hanging out and hanging in there with us. It's been about 3 hours of solid Megadeth. Darcy, Mike, I cannot thank you enough for coming on tonight and for picking such a really fun topic, something that a lot of folks had wanted to see here on Heavy Metallurgy for quite a while. It has been absolutely great, and you've both offered really interesting insights into your choices, why you had them ranked the way they are. I know there's a lot of folks that will disagree with those in the chat, but I think everybody can say that, yes, you both did a very good job of articulating why you have things where they do, and it's been a great discussion. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, and you did a great job yourself. But I couldn't think of a better way to spend a Friday night hanging out with you guys, or a Friday or Saturday morning, Mike. Straight to bed, eh? But yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you asking me on, Alan. I'm sorry I've coughed my way through it.
It's okay. I appreciate you hanging in there. I'm sorry that you feel bad. I know that's not easy to talk on these kind of things when you're a bit under the weather. So thank you for soldiering through on it.
Soldier on, Mike. Soldier on.
Rattle your goddamn head.
You old bastards.
Hey.
Hey, look who's back from the Britney Spears show.
I've been trying to pull the chat up, put them up in front of the screen, and got a phone call, so I kind of slacked the last 20 minutes. But
that's
awesome
okay.
show, guys. Awesome show. Great to have all you on. Thank you for covering for me, Alan.
Great. No problem at all. Yes, it would have been great to have you in here to rank them as well. But who knows? A few years down the road, we might have to revisit this and see where folks stand at that point. And we'll get the official worm rankings sooner or later.
Right on.
All right. But yeah, with that, it is time to bring this one to a close so that Mike can get some sleep. And I know we've got Darcy up past his bedtime as well. So, but if you guys will hold on for a few minutes, we'll chat backstage. And again, thanks to everybody in the chat. Been lots of really great comments in the chat tonight. Sorry, I haven't highlighted as many as usual, but I hope folks have enjoyed picking apart a catalog with a lot of variety and a lot of strong opinions associated to some of these albums, both good and bad. It's been a really, really good deep dive, in my opinion. But with that, let's any closing thoughts before
I just want to thank everybody that pops into to watch these. I am a fan of your show myself. I always tune in every Friday. It really, actually, I look forward to it. You guys always have a good time, whether I'm on or I'm watching. You guys do a hell of a job. So does Mike. And those of you that have been watching tonight that don't know the MetalMickey channel, you better go subscribe and
check it out.
He's a good dude.
Absolutely.
I found it hard to listen to Alan tonight. It's hard to listen to be on a live stream with Alan because I'm just sitting there listening to how he talks, how he presents himself on screen, and I just feel like going, right, I'm knocking it off, I'm going now, because it just I just fell out my depth, quite honestly.
Well, you know what? Before we go, Mike, I actually feel that way about you. I think you are.
Well, you are out your fucking depth with me.
You know what? You have an ability to articulate yourself in a very cool way, and that's what I love about you.
I love both your channels, and hopefully I didn't look, but I'm sure Alan put links in the description to both of these guys' shows.
Yep.
Please go subscribe to their channels. They've been doing it a long time. They're putting out some fun, awesome stuff and sharing a lot of great opinions, showing a lot of great metal. Definitely go give them some love with a subscription. That'd be awesome.
Yes. I think last time I checked, Mike is just shy of 2,000 subscribers.
Yay,
so
all right.
Go over there this weekend if you're watching that and get
Let's
the man
get him
across
over.
Get him across that 2K line. Absolutely. He's very deserving of that. Always has fun videos. All right, but with that, we've got to turn it in for the night. So once again, thanks to everybody for participating. We do not have a guest lined up for next week, but we'll get that. We've got some other shows in the works coming down the pipes, so there'll be cool content coming in the near future. Marty, do you have a book club for Wednesday night that you want to announce?
Yeah, we do. Jim, myself, and Kellen will be coming back and reviewing the new Ken Nardi solo album, which I can't remember the name of it. It's upstairs. It's his latest solo album. He's the old guy from Anacrusis, the old thrash band from back in the day. It's a pretty solid solo album. Good stuff. We're going to be talking about that. So join us Wednesday and check it out.
Should be good. Yeah, it's a 2021 album called Trauma.
Yeah.
Yes, supposedly, reportedly very much in the Anacrusis vein. So if you're a fan of that band, this is a good one for you to check out.
Yep.
All right. With that, we shall finally drop the curtain here. So everybody take care. Have a good weekend. For those of you in the path of Ian, please stay safe. And as always, rattle your goddamn head.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken.